Recording.
Okay. This is the regular meeting of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force called to order on Wednesday, May 6, 2015 at 4:10 p.m. Mr. Young, would you call the first item on the, or would you call the roll, please?
On the call of the roll, Member Wolf.
Present.
Wolf present. Member Copra. Copra absent. Member Pilpil.
Present.
Pilpil present. Member Hepner.
Present.
Hepner present. Member Fisher.
Present.
Fisher present. Member Hinsey. Present. Hinsey present. Vice Chair Hyland.
Wait, hold on.
Present, there we go.
Vice Chair Hyland. Hyland absent. Chair Washburn.
Present.
Washburn present. We have a quorum. Regarding agenda changes, there is a request for a postponement from Mr. Alvin Johnson. In addition to that, I believe there's a question regarding ADA accommodations.
Shall we?
Just a second, Paul. Regarding Alvin Johnson's request, his items were not due to be heard until 6:30. You indicated earlier that the respondent did not want to continue. Is that correct?
He is requesting a postponement to a future date.
The complainant is.
Yes.
The respondent, though.
The respondent is objecting to that request for postponement.
All right. Now, the respondent is not here. I am probably.
They are not scheduled to be here until 6:30.
All right. So we typically, or we traditionally have granted a postponement when the complainant asks to do so if it's the first time. Is that correct, members? Member Fisher? Yeah, okay.
If it's their first time, we usually grant that.
Right. So we could go ahead and move to grant a postponement.
We should probably wait until 6:30 before taking any action on that matter.
Chair Washburn, I think the respondents might be here. Can you double check? It's DP something.
Department of Human Resources.
And they're not here? Am I?
Is Ms. Guard in the room?
Okay.
She's not in the
Then
room
I-
at this time.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So we'll bring this up again at 6:30. So the next possible change to the agenda is regarding the matter that Ms. Dadish is the complainant for.
Yes.
Could you explain the issue here?
Ms. Datesh has requested to accommodations pursuant due to her inability to attend today's meeting. I believe that there is I consulted with our ADA administrator, and he does not believe that this request falls under the ADA requirement to provide accommodations. I have provided a copy of the letter to all members.
So in order for the complainant to attend via telephone, she would have had to have contacted.
She did contact me and requested accommodations and stated that she was in the hospital and could not attend the meeting. I set up the phone line, as you can tell. I believe that Ms. Datesh is currently on the line. She did call in. Yes.
I'm on the line.
However, our ADA coordinator does not believe that this situation requires ADA accommodations.
All right. So in that case, members?
I believe
anything?
if you would like to take comment from the
Respondent. Is the respondent here in this matter?
Yes.
Ms.
Patterson.
Patterson Murphy? Since you're here, as the respondent, your thoughts on whether we should postpone this?
I mean, I think we should move forward. I was already here where we
you heard the matter, and I'd like to see it concluded. I'm here today, so it would be great if we could conclude it today.
Through the chair.
Member Hepner?
This is a matter that was heard before the Complaints Committee and is on it. It's just a recommendation to the full task force. Is that correct?
Yes. This is the third
was heard
time.
by the complaint committee. It was forwarded with a recommendation to the task force. The task force did not agree with the recommendation of the complaint committee, and we have set up today's hearing to.
Right. Okay, this would be a new hearing.
Yes.
Okay. DCA Cola, could you weigh in on this, please?
As to whether an ADA accommodation, well, it seems as if we're making an accommodation by allowing the complainant to appear telephonically, are we not?
Well, she's,
I'm here. I'm listening.
so we've already set up the wherewithal for her to be here.
Does the complainant object to moving forward telephonically?
Not at all. I expressly want to do that.
And the respondent doesn't object to moving forward as is?
I defer to the force.
Okay, I guess the issue is one of precedence and fairness. Is this something that we would ordinarily do if there isn't a clear ADA accommodation? Is apparently there is not in this case.
Well, I think it's a slippery slope asking someone who alleges to have an ADA issue to prove what that issue is. I don't think we should touch on that.
And through the chair.
Member Hepner?
I don't believe that a determination has been made that the complainant is either entitled or not entitled to ADA accommodation. The opinion of the clerk is seeking additional information, and I agree that we should not really delve into that.
So, I mean, having said that, it doesn't appear that either party objects to moving forward with this complaint as is, with the complainant appearing telephonically. Is the task force concerned that this sets a bad precedent, or?
I guess I didn't raise the issue. Member Pilpel, would you speak to this, please?
Sure. Normally, people have to be present for hearings. Our hearing notice to both the complainant and the respondent said that they're required to attend. We're all required to be here physically. There was a charter amendment that was passed, but not yet implemented by the board about teleconferencing. Normally, at hearings of boards and commissions and other bodies, people have to be present for their case or for public testimony. I don't think, unless we're going to provide in our bylaws or procedures that people can literally just phone it in, that you should be able to. I think you need to be present. I think there's value to us as a body, to the public, for people to be present, for evidence to be presented, for us to be able to ascertain the credibility of witnesses in part by their being here. And so absent an ADA request that's properly made and granted, I think we should require people to be present. And as much as I would love to hear the matter, I'm prepared to move to continue it until the complainant can be present.
Through the chair. Hello?
One moment. We'll ask for public comment in a moment.
Other members?
I'm torn because I agree with both the complainant and respondent and think that we should move forward, but then I'm worried about the idea or item of precedence. But is that such a bad thing? I mean, Member Pilpel, I'll ask you directly, are you worried that all of a sudden we're going to get 5 cases and everybody's going to want to phone them in?
I'm concerned about a lot of things at tonight's meeting or on tonight's agenda. I think, and I'm not speaking specifically to the complainant, but I believe that there are individuals that are making requests for documents, making complaints, and attempting to manipulate the process before this task force and before city departments. And I think if we don't maintain control of our process, it can spiral further out of hand. I mean, we heard before, and we'll discuss it at 6:30, whether to continue a matter of more than 500 pages that some of us spent a lot of time preparing for and are now told that, oh, the guy can't be here. That, I'm minimizing my frustration, but I think people need to be present.
Okay.
Through the chair. Hello?
One moment.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Member Wolf?
It seems to me that if we have a complainant who has asserted a disability that can be mitigated through appearing telephonically, that we have every reason to support that. While it's true that her doing so is probably going to result in us not necessarily feeling the same level of connection or ability to gauge her credibility as we might in person, but that's a decision that she has made given all of the factors involved. It's important to keep in mind that you don't have to appear in public in order to request a document. You don't have to appear in, I guess you kind of do have to appear in public to witness a public meeting to some degree, but even then you can be doing so remotely. And I think that same sensitivity towards people not needing to physically be here to engage in that process should be observed on the other side. And for that reason, I don't see any good reason that we shouldn't permit this to move forward.
All right. So what we need at this point is a motion to continue, or
Are there
we
any
just,
motions on the floor?
Are there any motions?
I'll move to continue the matter to the call of the chair.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Is there any public comment on this motion?
Public comment?
Well, it's really,
Excuse me.
One moment, please.
Okay.
The person at the podium will have public comment at this time.
Okay.
it seems really fortunate to me that I'm here today about not only ADA, but what I'm hearing about precedent. The Ministry of having precedent. How many times have I been here with the Department of Public Health telling you guys, Jesus, you know, medical records aren't public records.
Excuse me, sir, you need to
Public
speak.
comment,
You
I
need
am.
no, you need to speak to this motion.
I am.
This
You know,
motion to
I am
continue.
I am speaking to the motion. I'm saying I'm disgusted by it. Nowhere was the ADA, the disability representative, asked any questions here about, ADA. Nowhere was anybody asked, what ADA rights the person on the phone has. I'm speaking directly to the motion. I've been here many years with the Department of Public Health and no precedent set by you guys, so for you to consider it is baloney. As far as an ADA representative, I've repeatedly asked for it, and it's never happened here. So the woman on the phone isn't getting any ADA help whatsoever. But a group of, 7 people? Well, we need 6 votes to pass this motion. This woman is being victimized by no due process. 6 votes is the majority of 7. I mean, come on, folks. This has been going on for years. Thank God I'm here to point it out. Yes, the woman is entitled to continue. She was entitled to her ADA representation. The person who supposedly is a disability representative should have said something, but this is just a token. This is a person who's disabled, but doesn't represent the disability community. It's all been cleverly planned. It's all been set up. I've been through it for years. I'm glad I'm here to speak and make a public comment on how it doesn't work and how the Ministry of Sunshine is going to bring precedent up when the Department of Public Health continually classifies medical records as not being public records when I've always gotten them because it has been, and I've requested precedents so that there be some enforcement. You guys are a farce.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment on this motion?
Chair Washburn.
Excuse me, there's someone at the podium.
I'll defer to her if she wants to speak.
All right.
Mr. Tesh, you may have public comment at this time.
Chair Washburn, members of the task force, I'm diabetic, and my blood sugar level spikes when I'm, not in a calm situation. And right now I'm in the hospital. I have been diabetic my entire life. Actually, I'm on disability. So as far as an ADA accommodation, nobody asked me to submit paperwork in advance, and nobody can predict that on a particular day or a particular point in time that they're not going to be having, something to do with a chronic medical condition. This complaint that's before you today is a meeting violation, and by listening to the audio, which can be done there on the laptop, it doesn't necessarily require me to be present. It's a simple meeting violation of tabling an item at a specific street artist meeting January 14th, 2015, tabling the director's report, item 2, and not taking public comment. It's there clearly in the minutes, and it's in the audio. So I don't think it's necessary for me to be present there right now at this time. I can present it over the phone. I've prepared a statement. I've listened to the audio a number of times. I believe there is a clear violation. And I'm sorry, I don't want to set precedent or anything like that. I've never requested this before, but, I'm diabetic. What can you do? Victor's gone out of his way to make this accommodation. I'm here now, and I'm ready to present the case.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment on the motion?
Good evening, Thomas Piccarello. Are we speaking of item 16? Is that
We're only speaking to the motion of whether or not to continue this matter.
What item on the agenda?
It's item 9.
Thank you. All right, I oppose the motion. The complainant is available by phone. I don't know who the ADA representative is, but obviously you have this person's report in front of you. The complainant is in the hospital, but she's available. Excuse me. She's available to present her case. If I understand Mr. Heppner, this matter's already been litigated or adjudicated somewhat in committee, so it's not going to take that long. So you should allow her to present and not continue the matter. Thank you.
All right. For additional public comment, I believe the respondent, if the complainant can speak to,
Yes.
Yeah, you can.
Great. So on Friday, late afternoon, the city attorney's office filed a motion for a restraining order against Ms. Datesh for harassing a Commissioner Barbara Sklar. Ms. Datesh emailed me along with our deputy director to inform us that she was aware of this motion and is now in the hospital. So while I'm happy to move forward with this process, I do question whether or not enabling her to call on the phone enables her to evade our serving of papers so that we may pursue the restraining order. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. All right. At this time, if there's any additional public comment on the motion? Members, anything else?
On the motion to continue the matter to the call of the chair, Member Wolf?
Pass.
Member Copra? Absent. Member Pilpil?
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Member Heppner?
No.
Heppner, no. Member Fisher?
No.
Fisher, no. Member Hinsey?
No.
Hinsey, no. Vice Chair Hyland? Hyland, absent. Chair Washburn?
No.
Washburn, no. Member Wolf?
No.
Wolf, no. The motion fails. We will hear this item in the order it is on the agenda.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, approval of minutes from the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, April 1st, 2015 minutes.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So move with edits provided.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, I have some minor edits. Mr. Young, I'll place them right here.
Is there any public comment regarding the minutes of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, April 1st, 2015 meeting? Being no public comment, the motion,
Without objection? All right.
Motion passes without objection. Member Copra and Member Highland were absent for the vote.
Would you call the next item on the
Yes.
agenda?
Give me a moment. I'm just notating. Next on agenda, item number 3, approval of minutes from the Complaints Committee, April 21st, 2015 meeting.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Is there any public comment or on the motion to approve the minutes of the Complaint Committee? Member Pilpel?
I also have edits to provide. So
All right, okay.
There being no public comment, on the motion to approve the minutes as amended, Member Wolf?
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Copra absent. Member Pilpil?
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Member Hepner?
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey?
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland? Absent. Chair Washburn?
Aye.
Washburn, aye. The motion passes. Item number 4, approval of minutes from the Rules Committee, March 10th, 2011, and January 20th, 2015 meeting.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second with edits.
The motion is to approve the minutes as amended.
Is there any public comment on the minutes, these two sets of minutes from the Rules Committee? Seeing none. Excuse me, Member Pilpel?
Yeah, just one quick question. Does this bring us up to date with regard to the Rules Committee? Because this was like
Yes,
4
it
years
does.
ago? Okay. Yay, Rules Committee minutes. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, and I'm sorry, in particular, the minutes of the Rules Committee from 2011 doesn't indicate what time the meeting was called to order, so we'll need to figure that out. It
Okay,
does
well,
have
you're going to give these edits to
Got it.
Mr. Young. All right. So, without objection,
The motion is passed without objection. Member Copra and Vice Chair Hyland are noted absent for this vote. Item number 5, Office of the City Administrator's Update, Index of Record pursuant to Administrative Code, Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.29.
Good afternoon, members of the task force. My name is Joan Lubomirsky, and I work in the office of the City Administrator Naomi Kelly. Our Deputy City Administrator Jennifer Johnston sent you a letter concerning an update of the index. She unfortunately is ill and could not be here, but I've been working with her on the project. With me also today are two of the people who've been doing this from a technology standpoint from the Department of Technology, Richard Eisen and Cindy Conway. So if you have some technical questions, they'd be certainly able to respond to them. Just briefly, by way of background, the city administrator sent a memorandum to all city departments in December, reminding them to look at their schedule in the index and to look at their policy and also to look at things they have in storage, things that they should retain, things that should be disposed of according to their schedule, according to the law, and requested the departments appoint records retention coordinators. And departments are very responsive. We have one from all departments, and we're going to be doing training a little later this month, and the sign-ups have gone well. We've been really pleased with the response that we've received from the departments. A few of the changes that will be within the new system will be there will be links available so that a member of the public can click on a link and then go to the document. Not for all documents, but in some cases that will be the case. And also the search mechanism will be much more user-friendly, much more, and the DT people could describe that to you in more detail if you like. And also there will be a date on it so that people will know when the schedule was passed by a department, if it was years old, if they're really behind, or if they've kept current. We're recommending that they look at their schedules, their commissions look at their schedules every 2 years. It's a big process to do that, and particularly for the large departments. But but they will all be working closely with their department city attorney as to how often that they should be doing that. We're recommending every other year. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We asked to come here to speak to you today, and we're pleased that you put us on your agenda. And the index is also on your website as well. Any questions?
Yeah, the index, sorry, through the chair. Which index is on which website?
The index to records, there's a link on your website.
Okay. Thank you.
I had a question. I read through the memo from the city administrator's office, and under overview, there was a link to the website, and I went there. This is the old site, right?
The current site.
The current
yes.
site, okay.
Yes.
So the new one it's not available for us to check yet?
Richard Isaac can respond to that, but we anticipate launching in June. Richard?
Yes, I just wanted to say, so I'm actually the guy who built that first website back in, I guess it was 2000.
What was your last name?
Eisen, I-S-E-N. It still exists. The records that are in there are the latest records that I had gotten from the departments, but we weren't really keeping track of dates at the time. So I don't know how old they are and how long they've been there. But it does go off your website. It is searchable. It does follow the ordinance. You can search by departments. Have the members seen it mostly? Yeah. Okay.
All right. So next month we should be able to see the new and improved version. Okay.
Well, you'll see the new version, but the new data, the old data will. You could explain how that will work.
Yeah, so we migrated the data that existed to the current one, and what will happen is after we train departments on how to update their data, and they go through the process, then the data will be published by the city administrator when all the signatures and whatnot are there. So when you look at it, you'll see the data that I currently have. And it doesn't, for instance, we didn't capture links at the time because people didn't have their documents online so much. Now that a lot of departments do, they can actually put the link so you can go get it. So you won't see that. But there will be a date to tell you when you're seeing the new data when the department goes through its process. So you'll know whether the department has updated their records or not. But I suspect it'll be a 6-month process, or maybe you don't know.
For large departments, this is going to take quite a while. As an example, the health department, we know they have lots and lots of records. Mm-hmm. We are going to give them some extra help, though, which is great. DT will be doing that, which we're very grateful for. But smaller departments, it may be, a couple months. But even in June, when the old data populates the new system, it's going to be better. So even that will be an improvement over existing. But it will be some time before this is all in place again.
I just wanted to bring up Cindy Conway, who is actually developing the new application, and she's using a very special type of search algorithm that she can explain to you.
Oh, okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, the new search algorithm functions on a full text basis. So whereas now you have to have an idea of what you're looking for, like you want to know by department, the system's savvy enough that you can just type a word in and it'll search through all of the schedules and it weights it differently. For example, it finds your search terms in the title. It will weigh that more heavily than if it was buried in a remark or perhaps in a category. Additionally, it allows for dimension filtering. So once it brings all those results back, it presents you with what departments those records apply to, what categories they apply to, what retention categories, and it's easy to filter down to get down to the information that you want.
Great.
This sounds like a huge improvement. I know before you really had to be very savvy. You had to be an expert in how a department operated, what they had, and what they called things. So if you can search by sort of plain English throughout the city, it sounds a lot, like a Google search, which we're all familiar with. So
the goal was to give an Amazon-like experience where you provide any search term, and then on the left there's an opportunity to, intelligently filter those results down.
Okay.
Through the chair.
Yes.
So, Ms. Conway and Mr. Eisen, you're from DTIS or you're from City Administration? Okay, so you're DTIS, and Ms. Lubomirsky is City Administrator. Okay, so you're the clients. Got it. Okay, and we're all stakeholders. Okay, so you're DT.
Right.
Yes.
Thanks for doing this.
We love it.
Our pleasure.
I have a question, and it pertains to the review of existing schedules. There's a reference to working with department records coordinators to evaluate documents that are currently in storage with an eye toward destroying documents that are in compliance with their department schedule. And by that, I assume that means that if the retention schedule says 5 years, if they have a document in storage that's 12 years old, they can destroy that document. First of all, am I understanding that correctly? And then why is the emphasis being placed that way?
It's not a matter of emphasis. It's simply a matter of fact that according to the ordinances, different schedules, different documents are required to be retained for a certain period of time. And if it's after that time, the department may choose to keep it for business reasons. Lawsuits, or I don't know what reason there might be. But according to the administrative code, there are different kinds of documents that need to be kept, or policy, that need to be kept for different periods of time. And again, this is not, we are the publisher. We are not evaluating a decision a department may have made. That's between them and their department head and their city attorney. But in terms of, given that the city does store and pays a lot of money to store a lot of paper, that we urge departments to take a look at that and see that if they're in compliance or if they're paying a lot of money to store a lot of paper, that they have no idea what it is and will never take the time to find out, possibly.
Right. And is there any idea whether there's an effort to digitize documents that are taking up too much space in storage? Some documents that may be more historically significant than others?
There are discussions about that, both from a legal need to keep it and also, as you say, historical. A lot of what I'm told anecdotally is a good deal of things that different, like planning or building inspection or whatever, may have in storage are historic documents. They're not records retention kind of related documents, but they're things that the departments are interested in should be retaining. So there is discussion about that. And one of the questions I know that is being looked at is, again, that what must you retain and then what may you retain. The city has some contracts with some digitization companies, but it's expensive, and there's some discussion of doing it sort of on a citywide look, but we're not working on that. I've simply heard about it.
Right. Great. Well, I hope at least prospectively we're making sure that there's a distinction there and being careful about what we allow to be destroyed and what else is preserved and what needs to be destroyed, what should be destroyed, and what should not.
Well, that's something that at least what a good thing is, at least we have somebody in each department who is identified as the records retention person. And so we're trying to educate them as part of our training in this effort about that.
I was wondering, this new position in each department, is there any overlap with the custodian of records in the various departments? Are they the same person sometimes?
There may be. We've advised that it be someone who has access to management, at a relative, and number one, in terms of decision making, and number two, who has a broad knowledge of the department. Okay. But in many cases, it's commission secretaries, but we don't know that exactly what overlap there may be.
Member Pilpaul, did you have something?
Yeah, I've been involved in some of this over the years. I wanted to thank all three of you and really also thank everyone, past, present, and future, who's worked on the Index of Records. This was a project that started with Joe Lerner many years ago. This really is, let me rephrase that. This really has been the compilation of the department record retention policies and schedules. This is moving into not just being that, but being a much more user-friendly, searchable thing with, and more, I hate to use this word, the robust FAQ, so that people with real questions about how this works and how to find a specific document within a category have some guidance on that with links to agendas, to minutes, to things that are commonly available, and maybe it helps get departments to put more documents that are regularly requested online rather than having to go through a public records request process. So this really is a great thing. I want to thank you for all the work that's been done and more work to come, and I'm happy to continue to help with that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. If there are suggestions that you have, or any of you really have, about what should be in the FAQs, or what how-tos, or what are those frequently sought documents might be, please let us know, because the more the merrier. We need all the information and advice we can.
Yeah, actually, I think it would be after this rolls out and you give it a couple of months, it might be a good thing to have you come back. And,
Be happy to.
And we could do some homework. And we have a committee, the Education and Outreach and Training Committee, that could take this on as a project to, see how we think this is working from the point of view of the public. But this is exciting because it should help staff people a great deal. If the public can find what they want themselves, you don't have to, spend your time helping with that. So
we do, excuse me, Madam Chair, we do anticipate that there will be a version 2 someday, and we won't take as long as it took the first time. So if there are things that should be different, we will definitely be maintaining a list of that and recording it. And if we can make the update easily, then we would, but I think we'd also wait for updates periodically. I'm sorry, is there any question?
Yeah, you might have touched upon this when you were explaining it, but it took a while for all the pieces to fit together in my brain. So each department will have essentially the same structure for their index of records. They'll
Yes.
be using the same software, essentially.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Will it be possible for the end user, the citizen, to search one place across multiple departments' indices of records?
I'll let Cindy answer that.
Yes, when they do a search in the central search box, it searches across all schedules for all departments. Having said that, we did an analysis of the current website and what people are searching for the most, and it's that they bring up a schedule by department. And so on the front page, the first call to action is where they can put in a search term, and the second area for them to take action is a list of all the departments, agencies, commissions that have schedules, so that they can just click on it. And then once they click on it, they have a very a very easy-to-use way of filtering down within that schedule to get to the information they want for that department. So, yes, by department and also across departments.
Well, that sounds great. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
But not all departments will have all kinds of documents. As an example, Public Works will have construction documents. The Entertainment Commission wouldn't. So it will be, each department will decide what kind of documents it needs to have on its schedule. The smaller departments may be, limited, but the large departments, as I said, is going to be a much bigger document.
I just want to add.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead and then I
I
have
was
one
going
more
to say,
question.
one of the things that we have in the new index of records is what we're now calling suggested records. And these are records that we've put together that pretty much every department should have. So they can literally click them all down and say, okay, and then they know, and in a way they know that they need those records, because sometimes they may or may not know. And then, like for instance, ACC is going to have dog bite records, and no one else is going to have those, for instance. But, yeah.
Just one other feature of the search functionality, and this is reminiscent of what Google provides. It's not looking for a specific word, so if you put transport or transportation, it's going to find it either way, and as a matter of fact, if you make a typo, it'll suggest, did you mean, and it'll provide the term that is most likely a match for what's in our particular index of words.
sounds just like Google. Yeah.
Then how exhaustive are the records within each department? So a copy of the contract for the food service for the public transportation's lunchroom or whatever is a public document. Would such a document be contained within the index of records?
No, there would be a category called contracts maybe, and then it could be winnowed down to something more specific, but it will be how long it's kept and whether it's on-site or off-site, and also a citation as to what ordinance it is by which that is being kept. Now, that said, some departments may choose to put links to specific documents, but something that granular, I would be surprised. No.
Great. Thank you.
Member Pilpel.
And again, we'll talk further offline about having this online. To Member Wolf, I think even if there's a category that says contracts, and presumably most, if not all departments will have contracts, for each department they might have a separate description within that, such as, concession contracts, towing contracts, blah, 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 that's specific to that department. So it shouldn't be as hard to find the needle in the haystack or the, food service concession contract at a particular place if that's something that's more common within the department. And we should also try to standardize terms across departments so one department isn't keeping employment records in the thing that's called employment files and another one's calling them personnel files, and so you only find some but not all. So there's work to do to try to both standardize and make this usable across the whole city, given the vast amount and description of record types from here to the Sierras and slightly down the peninsula. So,
but I think generally what will be listed will be a type of record rather than a single document. There may be links, but perhaps like to your statement of incompatible activities or something like that. But I wouldn't anticipate that an individual contract or something that would not be. But you'd know who to ask for it.
And we can talk about examples that come up regularly.
Yeah, in the FAQs, that'd be great.
Just add one more thing. There is an open notes field, and some departments have put a lot of information in and some haven't. So it's really up to the department in that case.
And I'm sorry, just one other thing. This also complements efforts that have been made in various departments. So if you look at the Board of Supervisors website, there's now a Legislative Research Center where you can actually look at legislative files for the last 15 or 20 years, including detailed documents that are in the file. So there's a lot more material that's available in most departments, not all, and this is an additional way for people to be able to understand how records are organized and request them. Thanks.
Thank you very much. If there's anything else, please let us know. And I think it's a great idea that once this is in action for a while, that we could come back and talk to you. And if you do have any suggestions at that point, we would welcome them.
Right. So if you don't hear from us, you can call us.
Absolutely.
Ask to be put on the agenda.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Is there any public comment on the presentation we've just heard? Anyone? All right.
There being no public comment, no action is needed on this matter. It was an update.
Would you call the next item on the agenda, please?
Item number 6, file number 15011, complaint filed by David Eisenberg against Trent Rohrer and the Human Services Agency for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.3, 67.4, 67.7, and 67.21 for failure to adequately respond to a February 4, 2015 request for information about the HSA meeting and for denying access to said meeting.
All right. So we need to first determine whether we have jurisdiction.
So moved.
All right. Is there any public comment on the motion to find jurisdiction? Seeing none, without objection.
The motion to find jurisdiction is passed without objection with member Copra and member Highland absent.
All right, at this time, we'll hear first from the complainant. You have 5 minutes to explain why you brought this matter before us, and then we'll hear from the respondent.
Thank you so much for having me here today, or allowing me to be here today. This is critically important to me, and I think precedent setting as relates to the city. I will get to the substantive issues first. The Sunshine Act requires concerned citizens who request it the right to be notified of and to attend passive meetings of city employees relating to, quote, solely of employees of the city and county of San Francisco when such committee is reviewing, developing, modifying, or creating city policies or procedures relating to the public health, safety, or welfare, or relating to services for the homeless. Section C5 and also Section C2. any group that meets to discuss with or advise the mayor or any department head on physical, economic, or policy issues. I requested the City Human Services Agency, Misters Cantara, Rohrer, and Curto, to advise me of all passive meetings involving the Jennings Street Project Bayview Homeless Shelter by email of 12 February 2015. Trent Rohrer of HSA responded very quickly by email stating neither the mayor nor I as HSA executive director have formed any committee, and although HSA may have periodic meetings among a few staff to discuss the project, as the agency customarily does with complex projects, these meetings do not meet the legal definition of passive meetings. Accordingly, I am denying your request. That's the purpose of my being here today, and Mr. Nicholas Cole of the City Attorney's Office wrote an excellent memorandum on the issues involved, dated 27 March. The primary issue is what constitute a passive meeting of city employees, of requiring notification of concerned parties and allowance of their attendance. He posed 3 questions that might assist in determining the facts, and these are great questions. They are, number 1, are there any planned HSA meetings in the foreseeable future that would meet the threshold of being passive meetings? Number 2, if so, did HSA notify complainant of these meetings? Number 3, is services to the homeless a topic for discussion during these meetings that HSA will not allow complainant to attend? HSA has argued it has held no such meetings, and I've argued that all meetings involving the project where HSA employees meet with employees of at least one other city department constitute passive meetings under the law. Examples of meetings I believe qualify would include a meeting held in mid-January with possibly the mayor being present, but certainly employees of the mayor's office, HSA, probably planning, almost certainly DPW, wherein the project was discussed and the city decided to proceed, with the mayor wanting to see construction costs reduced from $3.95 million estimated by DPW to $2 million, and with significant progress to be made by November 2015. To this date, Sunshine Act, I have been unable to obtain evidence of the specifics of the meeting, even who attended. I learned of the meeting through Sunshine requests. Thank goodness for the Sunshine Act. Number 2, a pre-application meeting held on 10 March 2015 with employees of DPW meeting with City Fire Department and City Building and Inspections Department personnel to review and approve modifications to DPW's plans for the project, eliminating sprinklers at 2111 Jennings, reducing earthquake and fire standards at 2115. The deletion of the sprinklers at 2111 Jennings directly affects the safety of my company, as I'm located directly next door. A meeting scheduled this week with Trent Rohrer and others of HSA, meeting with Mayor Lee and probably Supervisor Malia Cohen to discuss the project. I'm sure that if the city proceeds with this project, HSA will have many more meetings with city planning, DPW, and others. These meetings will discuss how to waive planning requirements and how to waive code requirements to reduce the cost of the project. These directly affect my business and certainly my opposition to the project. I sincerely hope you will advise HSA and other city departments that they must advise me 72 hours in advance of multiple department meetings working on the project and allow me to attend them. My companies were founded 72 years ago by my father, Resco Incorporated and Microtraces Incorporated. We employ 45 people. We've been located on Van Dyke Avenue in Bayview 35 years. We work with dangerous, hazardous, and explosive chemicals. Every day I'm concerned that we're going to make some mistake and hurt somebody. Thank goodness in all these years we have not had a major accident, and it would be disastrous for my company if the city builds this project. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to offer facts and evidence in support of the complainant? Okay, seeing none, the respondent, you have as well 5 minutes.
My name is Diana Christensen. I'm the custodian of records for the Human Services Agency. HSA has not had passive meetings, and we don't intend to have them related to Jennings Street. If we have any passive meetings at all related to the homeless, it would be with the local homeless coordinating committee. Thank you. And Mr. Eisenberg is welcome to go to those meetings, and I believe that he's on the mailing list. Mr. Eisenberg handed you all a paper, handed a colleague of mine, but not me, even though he knows I'm the custodian of records for the department, a notice that came out tonight. I believe you have it. That's not in keeping with the due process rules of this body, and I would object to you using that as part of this process, and I would object to it because he's giving specific facts that we couldn't check, and so it leaves us in a place where, for the first time since he made this complaint, we're getting anything specific at all about what he's talking about. It's much harder for me to respond. I don't necessarily have the right people even in the room if I don't know what meetings he's talking about. He's had ample opportunity because this was scheduled for a meeting last month, and even though we objected to it going forward because of an incident that occurred with me, he elected to go ahead anyway and then bailed before it happened. He's had plenty of time to get this information to you and to us. He is providing you with a definition of passive meeting that isn't in the Sunshine Ordinance. There is nothing there that says when two employees from different departments meet, that constitutes a passive meeting. That's not the definition. The definition is about the putting together of a committee, and we haven't done that. We haven't put a committee together to advise anybody on these issues. And if we did, and if we do in the future, we'll follow what the Sunshine says and give people the opportunity to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to offer facts and evidence in support of the respondent?
No, you're my guest.
Okay, seeing none, the matter is with the task force for questions of either party or both parties. Member Pilpel.
Great, thanks. I'll start with Mr. Eisenberg. First of all, can you just clarify on the letter you provided us today, was that, I just glanced at it briefly, was that largely a recap of your oral testimony?
Yes, well, my oral testimony was taking directly from what I wrote.
Okay, so it was largely what you just recited to us. I didn't see much in there that we haven't read or just heard from you. Do you have any evidence that the department or the mayor actually created a committee to deal with issues, including homeless issues?
Well, that is part of the issue here tonight, I suppose. What constitute a committee? And I'm arguing that when a group of city employees from different departments come together to meet and discuss the project, that this constitutes a committee.
Who are they, in your opinion, advising? Let's be clear. The provision in the ordinance only speaks to advising the mayor or a department head. Is there either this mayor or some city department head that they're advising?
No, I related that there were two different sections in the Sunshine Ordinance relating to this. The first section states solely of employees, a passive meeting. This is passive meetings of city employees.
Yep.
Solely of employees of the city and county of San Francisco when such committee is reviewing, developing, modifying, or creating city policies or procedures relating to the public health, safety, or welfare, or relating to services for the homeless.
Mr. Eisenberg, I'm familiar with that section. It's an exception to an exception, and in order to reach that, you first have to meet one of the requirements above, that it's created by a department head to advise on.
No, I don't. Could you ask for an opinion from Mr. Cola?
Excellent. Mr. Cola.
Let's see. I mean, from what I read in this, if you look at I'm not going to offer my exact take on how I think this code section should apply, but I think everyone here should read section 67.3 C5 and see how you think that should apply to this. It states that, let's see, notwithstanding the provisions of paragraph 4 above,
right,
and paragraph 4 states that a passive meeting body shall not include a committee that consists solely of employees of the City and County of San Francisco created by initiative of a member of a policy body, the mayor, or a department head. So notwithstanding that section right there, a passive meeting body shall include a committee that consists solely of employees of the City and County of San Francisco, where such committee is reviewing, developing, modifying, or creating city policies or procedures relating to the public health, safety, or welfare, or relating to services for the homeless.
Right. So do you believe that in order to reach subsection 5 there, that it needs to be created by the initiative of a member of a policy body, the mayor or a department head, in 4? And for that matter, in C1? Exception to an exception.
I think you're getting to the bottom of what is a committee, and is a committee something created by the initiative of a member of a policy body, and therefore to even apply number 5, is that what you're getting at?
Well, basically, you start at C1.
Right.
It's only passive meeting body only captures advisory committees under C1. C2, 2 and 3 aren't relevant to this inquiry. 4 says it does not include a committee consisting solely of employees. And then 5 said, notwithstanding the exception in 4, it does apply if the committee is doing certain things or relating to certain topics. So I think that you start with C1. Do you agree?
And even for C5 to apply, it must meet the threshold created by the initiative of a member of a policy body, the mayor or department head.
Yes.
That's your argument.
I don't know if C1 has to apply. I thought it was an either or thing here, reading down C1, C2, C3. Those are different things.
Right, but the only way that you get to a committee, C2 and 3 don't discuss committees, they discuss groups or social, recreational, or ceremonial occasions. So the only thing in C1, 2, or 3 that's a committee is an advisory committee under C1.
I think if you look at C4 by itself, it deviates from the rest of them in saying that this does not meet the definition of a committee for these purposes.
Right.
So I think you look at C5 individually on its own. Now, whether or not you think that meets the threshold, that's up to the task force to discuss and interpret.
So the way I'm looking at it is in this particular, of all the issues facing the city, it's the issue of the homeless, where you could have a committee solely of employees discussing that matter. And this committee would be, I guess, appointed by the department head in this case. But I'm wondering, in this case, are these meetings a meeting of a committee, or if it's just employees and there's no standing membership of a committee per se? You know, it's people who work for the department or the agency that are meeting to conduct work on a project versus a committee that's made up of specific members who meet over time and who are really developing and modifying policies and procedures. So I think there's a spectrum of activities here, you know, on one end being developing policies, but they're just city employees that are involved in that, not a commission like we are. And then at the other end of the continuum would be various people who work for the agency. There's a big project, so they meet occasionally amongst themselves or with other people in city government to push the project forward. So it's not a matter of developing policies, but does that make sense, my
So-
distinction or the continuum?
Do you want to weigh in and then I'll comment?
Well, I think if you look at, I think the code is poorly written in this, in that at the end of the final semicolon, in all of subsection C, it should state or and, which would indicate then whether or not each one is independent.
Yeah.
So I think the task force should determine whether or not they think, if the writers of this code section thought that in order for there to be a committee, that it needs to meet each and every single one of those definitions under C, then yes, C1 must apply before you get to C5. But if you think that any one of C1 through 4 on their own could constitute a committee, then C5 stands on its own.
That's the way I think it should be read. If you're looking at D, those are all different things as you read down. And so with parallel construction, as you would hope they would have used, it's the same thing. These are semicolons too, by the way.
So if that's the case, then you could look to see if C2 or C3 is applicable in the context of applying C5.
So, if I may, I think C2 and C3 don't apply. I agree that it could have been written better. I believe that the C5 provision was added in Prop G. As I recall, that was a big concern of former chair, Doug Comstock, that there were meetings that were occurring, and I can't remember now if it was the 10-year homeless plan or the response to Matrix or something. There was some committee that was going on that was dealing with the homeless that was appointed by the mayor, and that the mayor's office at the time said, that's not a public meeting, you can't attend, and we're not going to tell you about it. See you later. And so the response in Prop G was to insert C5. So my understanding has always been that it was an exception to an exception, that you reach 5 through C1 and C4, that it's only committees involving staff of the city that are addressing homeless questions generally and advising a department head or the mayor. If that were read in perhaps the way Mr. Eisenberg is suggesting, then I think any meeting that Bevan Dufty goes to, or the staff to the local homeless coordinating board, or anybody at HSA or DPH or other departments that are dealing with homeless issues would be passive meeting bodies, and I don't think that's a reasonable read of this section. I think it's policy issues that it's only dealing with policy issues, and it's only when they're created by and advising a department head or the mayor. So bottom line is, unless, Mr. Eisenberg, you've got evidence to the contrary, I don't think that the work that HSA has been doing on this project that you apparently oppose, and that's fine, I don't think that work constitutes a committee addressing these issues that's a passive meeting body. Okay? If you have any response to that, I'd like to hear it, and then I have a question for the HSA folks.
Well, I read these paragraphs very carefully, and I think Mr. Kohler did too, and he posed 3 questions. Are there any planned HSA meetings in the foreseeable future that would meet the threshold of being passive meetings? I could see where you could make arguments that meetings of 3 or 4 employees of different departments does not constitute a committee, that possibly the definition should be limited when these 3 or 4 people meet more than once or meet on multiple occasions, in which case I think they might be defined as being a committee. But I just don't agree on your read. I think paragraph 4 stands on its own, and it's fairly clear.
Fair enough. Thank you. Can I ask Ms. Christensen or Mr. Curto? You've stated in your submittal and tonight that HSA has not created such a committee.
That's right.
Is it your understanding that any committee is in the offing here, or that this project is just going to continue to get worked however it's getting worked?
And let me answer that.
Sure.
There have been no committees or task force formed on this project.
Okay.
This project, as it progresses along, will reach to the point where it needs to go back to the Board of Supervisors for a real estate lease. It needs to go to the Planning Department for a special use district hearing. So there are opportunities of those type meetings coming up in the future. We're just not at that point yet.
Has this been or will this be discussed at other bodies like the Human Services Commission, the Local Homeless Coordinating Board, the Shelter Monitoring Committee, anything else I can't think of right now?
It could well be a topic at the Local Homeless Coordinating Board,
okay.
Because it is services for homeless people. There is no action pending currently before the Human Services Commission.
Has it been there, or might it be there in the future?
It might be in there in the future, in which case it'll be noticed appropriately, and it's a public meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are one of you or you actually the point person on this project, or?
I'm the point person on the project for the Human Services Agency.
Okay.
Yes.
So, notwithstanding your denial of Mr. Eisenberg's request to be advised of passive meetings related to this, which may or may not be passive meetings, are you able to inform Mr. Eisenberg when, to your knowledge, anything related to this project is coming up at any of those public meetings where
Yes,
he could
absolutely.
attend?
As soon as any of these meetings are set, we'll advise Mr. Eisenberg and the other opponents of the project that these meetings will take place.
And you're happy, you're willing to do that, and you've stated that on the record?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for either the respondent or the complainant from members of the task force?
Yeah.
Yes, Member Hepner.
Thank you. I have a question for the representatives from HSA. And just you verified that you are the point person on this project currently? Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And how often are you meeting with members of other departments to discuss this project?
It has not been very frequently, probably once every other month.
And who initiates those meetings?
It depends on the subject of the meeting. Right now, we're working with the Department of Public Works. They're developing the scope for the project and the budget. Once that portion is complete, then it'll move and be formally introduced to the Planning Department to start the planning process.
Okay. And do you expect a meeting with representatives from DPW before it's introduced to the Planning Department?
Yes.
And who will initiate that meeting?
It's a good question. I've asked DPW for an update. They have not provided us an update since February on where they are with the actual scope of the project and the budget. That's the next step, is we're trying to define what the scope is. We did have a pre-application meeting with DBI and the fire department so that DPW could finish their plans and their project scope. They had a number of questions they needed clarification on.
And that was the March 10th, 2015?
That was the March 10th meeting.
And where did that meeting take place?
At the Department of Building Inspection.
Okay. And who initiated that meeting?
The Department of Public Works.
Okay. Was it the department head?
It's a normal pre-application meeting whenever any entity, public or private, submits plans to the Department of Building Inspection for a building permit. They have a pre-application meeting to go through and explain the project, explain what they're doing, and then they make changes that they think are necessary before the plans are actually submitted.
And those are changes based on sort of advice provided by you or other representatives in the room? Or?
No, it's the structural engineers at the Department of Building Inspections. It could be the city architects. It could be the fire department. It could be various entities that all have to sign off on the finished drawings for the project.
Okay. And when a meeting like that is largely directed at sort of the actual construction of the premise, the sort of engineering of the project, are we talking about what services are being provided to homeless individuals at a time, or is that part of that?
No, it's strictly the bricks and mortar of the project.
Okay. So the reason I wanted to get a little bit more information along those lines is to determine, is this something that we think that the public has a right to be at? Is that a passive meeting body? If it's, it does not meet regularly, they're not discussing expressly homeless services, and though they are discussing the construction of a building that will house homeless services, so maybe the distinction there isn't quite as clear. And I think I share Member Pilpel's concern that we are at risk of creating a system where anytime somebody from a representative from from DBI and a representative from Hope or the mayor's office meets to discuss this project, that the public has a right to be present at that meeting or at that discussion. That's a dangerous thing. Maybe it's not. I mean, maybe these meetings are happening so infrequently that it would not be problematic to accommodate the public at them. And under the rules that we have, they're not required to provide notice of meetings of passive meeting bodies unless notice is reasonably requested. So the obligation, I think I'm trying to weigh the obligation that we're putting on the city departments with how we're interpreting this somewhat ambiguous and maybe poorly written portion of the Sunshine Ordinance. I share, and with the bottom line that I do share Member Pilpel's concern.
Well, my concern as well. I mean, I was trying to explain this continuum that I see. Right. On the one end, we have well-formed committees with specific members appointed by somebody. These committees meet regularly to discuss policy. And then at the other end are city employees who get together all the time, meetings all over the city, different cast of characters depending on the work that's before them. And, those are not in any sense committees. Right. And I see what I understand these meetings have been kind of work meetings, as various issues come up. It's not a single body that meets regularly or even infrequently to discuss policies or procedures. So I don't see a committee here that's meeting as a passive meeting body at all. Member Pilpel.
And I'll try to be brief. There was a lot of discussion in 1993 when the ordinance was first passed and through the years and as part of the Prop G drafting about exactly that question. We've got the Board of Supervisors, we've got boards and commissions that have specific decision-making authority, and then you've got everything as far down as, two members of a department or different departments meeting to, actually get work done. So where do you draw the line about what's a public meeting and subject to all of these requirements and what isn't? And the answer was policy bodies are those bodies that have decision-making authority. This sort of in-between creature that doesn't exist in state law of a passive meeting body was created, and it's unfortunately not as well defined as it could, but the idea was where the mayor creates a blue ribbon committee to discuss the lawyers or to discuss the homeless problem on the Farallons, because the homeless problem in the Farallons is a serious concern, that would be open to the public to attend, not to give testimony and not to make decisions, blah, 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 but to observe the proceedings. And the question then is, where does activity related to this particular project, or for that matter, any other city project? The PUC is here for a later item. The PUC staff people meet with planning all the time to talk about various PUC projects. Are those passive meetings that are open to public review? So what I suggested earlier is that if the department is willing, and we heard that they are willing to notify members of the public, supporters or opponents of the project when it's going to be heard at a policy body, that's great, and I think that's helpful. and that's the most that we can request and get. So,
I agree, yeah.
And I think that they indicated their willingness to do that, not only of a policy body, but even passive meeting bodies, to the extent it meets that threshold.
If anything gets created, sure.
All right.
Yeah. I'd just like to say that in thinking about this presentation, because we've had some time to think about it, the last policy meeting about this particular project was held at the Board of Supervisors when they passed the resolution to accept and expend the state forgivable loan to build the shelter. That has been the last policy meeting that's taken place on this issue, and that was a year and a half ago.
Okay. All right, if there are no more questions from members of the task force at this time, the respondents, Mr. Curto and Ms. Christensen, if you'd like, you have 3 minutes to offer any final remarks.
Was it Curto or Crudo? I didn't get your name.
It's Curto.
Spelled?
Curto.
Thank you.
It's the Italian word for short.
I could remember that one.
No, I don't think we have any other comments. I think we've...
Your first name was?
David.
David.
Okay. Thank you. And at this time, Mr. Eisenberg, you have 3 minutes for some closing remarks.
Well, I would disagree with Mr. Curto on his statement that the only passive meeting or policy meeting was the Board of Supervisors voting to accept the $978,000 loan to build the project. There have been at least 2 or 3 meetings involving the mayor where the project would have been dead except for his intervention, and where a group of people, including Trent Rohr and Bevan Duffy, met and persuaded the mayor to go along with the project, even though the cost is not $978,000, it's $3.95 million as estimated by DBW. But Mayor Lee advised that that was too much money for him to try to go back to the Board of Supervisors to get allocated, so he needed the project done for $2 million. Well, how do you cut a $3.95 million project to $2 million? Well, you eliminate sprinklers in the existing Mother Brown's building. You eliminate earthquake and fire safety parts of the structure, which relates to engineering. So yes, the pre-application meeting related to structure and engineering, but these directly related to policy too, as to whether you want to compromise the quality of the construction to protect the homeless people who are going to be housed there, or whether you're going to stick to the original estimate of $3.95 million to make the project comply with all standards and be done properly. So, of course, if the true cost of the project is $3.95 million, and when you add on $3 million in lease payments to Ronald Pankowski, the owner of the building, you're looking at a total cost of $7 million, and suddenly the whole project becomes uneconomic and something that neither Mayor Lee nor Bevan Duffy nor anyone else can defend at the Board of Supervisors or elsewhere. So right now there have been these meetings, which I consider to be passive meetings. When you read the letter of the law in section C5, I would have loved to have been present at the meetings to know exactly what is being discussed and planned. There are various people at the fire department in particular who I think they can have a disaster over there, and some people can get killed, and the careers of these people at the fire department will be ended because they're being asked to sign on to things that they should not be signing on to and they shouldn't be asked to sign on to. So I would love to be present at the meetings that I consider to be passive meetings under the law. And unfortunately, I don't think the Sunshine Task Force is going to vote in my favor on this, but thank you for considering my arguments.
Thank you. Is there a motion at this time?
I just have a clarification,
Pil-Pil.
probably not a motion. To HSA, again, you indicated that there was an action to accept and expend or accept a loan or apply for...
Yes.
There has been no final action to either complete the building or open it provide services.
No, there are
still
several steps that have to take place in order for that to happen.
a number of steps, both by policy bodies and by DBI or planning.
Planning department, there has to
Okay.
be a full CEQA report. There has to be the project and the scope and all of that.
Thank you.
It's in that process. None of those additional steps have been
And you guys are
scheduled
seeking
yet.
that because you're the project sponsor, but that's up to them. So thank you. So to Mr. Eisenberg, in addition to what I said earlier, you might want to consider asking DBI and planning to put you on the notification list for anything related to that property or address. I'm sure you know the block and lot number. We don't need to know that now. They have a process called a block book notation at planning, and there's a different thing, I forget what it's called at DBI, where you can be notified of any permit requested or issued for that property. You might want to consider that and the environmental review. So before any final action is taken to permit, to zone it, to approve the use, to permit alterations to the building, they can notify you of that, and then you'll have a period of time where there may be an appeal right to other places. So there are some other things that you can avail yourself of, even if we can't get you in the door on the thing that you want.
Thank you very much for your advice.
And thank you.
I'll try to take advantage of all of this.
Excellent, thanks.
All right. I guess, is there any...
Are there any motions?
Are there any motions? Okay, seeing none, do we want to take public comment on the item before we move on?
No motion, but we still take public.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if we can take public comment, I'd love to get public comment. Now, I don't know about the specifics, but from what I've been listening to and everything, I loved how the other side got up and claimed that, there was no due process in the letter that was handed to you guys that the Clayton was talking about.
Microphone, please.
Okay, sorry, didn't know. Along those lines, having 6 people here and having to clear all 6 votes is not due process either. So I believe that the complainant was not allowed due process in the first place. Secondly, I also believe I heard something about an exemption to an exemption to an exemption, blah, 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 blah. Well, if that's the case, if you have an exemption to an exemption, the only logical thing is that they're trying to include the things that must not be exempted at the end, which means public safety. I believe the complainant was talking about public safety, C5, and whether it's a passive meeting between 2 different groups of employees in different departments, because public safety requires the coding, for example, for fire extinguishers, which he brought up, to reduce the price from $3.9 million to $2 million, are public safety issues. So under that definition, I believe it clearly applies because it's an exception to an exception, so you do not forget that these are the things that must be reviewed, i.e. public safety, everything that he had listed in that thing, so that they would not get subverted. The exception to the exception rule should be you cannot exclude this last thing even because it's an exception, and that's the point. That's how it should be read, from the end forward, not from the beginning backward. These are the things that must never pass. Public safety must always be guarded. And if we're going to err on the side of common sense and what is good. So who cares if 2 different departments are meeting to reduce the cost, thereby eliminating sprinklers? We, the public, deserve to know under public safety. So that's the way, from what I heard, not having read or had time to discuss the policies or anything, blah, 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 blah. This all comes down to public safety. The guy admitted that he has a volatile business next door. What, are we waiting for something to happen and there be a fire and it blow up because of his volatile business that's next door? He's trying to alert the public. Thank you, the Ministry of Sunshine. Anything to obscure the truth, to not act on what's correct, and to find any way out through a word manipulation game. No, that's not what you stand for.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
I have public comment. This is Paula Datis. I think the efforts of Mr. Eisenberg have been a very good faith effort to, find out what's going on in the Bayview, a place where he's done business for many, many years. And I think in this instance, though there wasn't a motion or there wasn't an order, that the Sunshine Task Force succeeded in that from this point moving forward, Mr. Eisenberg will be noticed of any future hearings that concern him and his business. So I think it was a win on both sides. And I think it was a very good argument that he made.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
Member
Wolf, did you have something?
I have a point of process concern, and I think that it's fine to allow Ms. Dadish to participate in her portion of the meeting on an ADA issue, but I think that if we have people able to participate in public comment telephonically on an ADA exception, then we could conceivably have a handful of people listening in and engaging telephonically in public comment, and that does create something that we need to at least look at.
We can discuss this at a future time. I will schedule a hearing to discuss the matter.
Okay, all right. That's a good
Think
point.
about it by phone, maybe. You know.
I was having this.
I'll be calling in for that one.
Okay, yeah, I was having the same. Thanks for voicing my thoughts too. All right, I believe this matter is
There
is
being no
completed.
motion, the task force finds no violation and the matter is concluded.
Can I just state again to HSA, if you could write a confirming letter to Mr. Eisenberg restating what you indicated and maybe copy it to us for the file, that would be nice. Thank you all.
All right.
Item number 7. Members of the public comment. Members of the public may address the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force on matters that are within the task force jurisdiction, but not on today's agenda.
Is there any public comment on anything else?
Want to give public comment?
Ms. Tesh, go ahead and make your public comment.
Okay. I won an Ethics Commission complaint against the San Francisco Arts Commission last month. It was for a sunshine violation. Contained in the packet was a letter submitted by member David Tilpel, who was submitting the letter as a private citizen, yet he gave facts and evidence gleaned from his time on the task force. The facts were wrong, and he attempted to discredit me personally as a response for public documents. In the letter, he also gave his opinion about how the matter should be adjudicated and what the penalty should be. It was very distressing to read that letter. Prior to the hearing, Member Pilpel was in the chamber attempting to talk to Rebecca Krill, the respondent, on my matter. I was sitting in the front row when he was disruptive during the meeting by jumping out several times to the podium, attempting to speak on each item. It was very anxiety-provoking for me because on my agenda item, he wanted to speak twice under public comment as a private citizen, and I had to stand up and object that he was only allowed to speak once. I felt that he was clearly out of line on my issue. I just want to remind the task force that Patrick Monet Shaw filed 4 complaints in 2 years on Member Pilpel. 3 were for more or less the same thing, representing himself as a member of the Sunshine Task Force to the Ethics Committee, which I read through all his complaints and I felt they were legitimate. And one was for a non-filing of statement of economic interest. I think that Member Pilpel should be censored at Ethics Commission meetings because he is a private citizen and not a member of the Sunshine Task Force. And he should not be speaking on matters that are Sunshine Task Force related, referred up to the Ethics Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from members of the public?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Okay. Yes, I'm still waiting. My name is Jason Grant Garza, and I'm basically still waiting to understand why there's only 6 members here and how this is going to be due process. You have to remember that until we had a disabled person, we had a nuclear winter because we were not having due process. Well, it's the same principle here. Do all 6 of you have to agree for a motion to pass, or is it the majority, only 4? You know, this has been brought up for many, many years as I've been here. And you know what? It's the same scam happening all over again. amazing. Nothing has changed here at the Ministry of Sunshine that doesn't take precedent, that doesn't allow due process, and now probably won't answer my question whether it's going to take only 4 of you guys to pass a motion or whether it's going to take all 6. Now, it's really funny that Ms. Washburn is sitting here as the chair because she was the person who was behind, this due process thing, and, I believe it was an attorney who brought the matter forward just a few years ago, and, that person dropped out of all the frustration, but yet she's sitting here as the chair again when, she brought this up with that attorney that, the thing about due process. So I'm a little confused. I would hope that, we don't just continue to have committee chairs that have been here a while that, have been swayed at the ministry by whatever policy or the city attorney or the interpretation of law. If we're to believe that we're going to have due process, it should be with a majority of the votes, but certainly not all 6. We don't have 11 members sitting here. We have 3 that are vacant as far as I'm seeing on here. To want to get all of you to do something, wow, that's amazing. I couldn't even get one of you to agree with me a minute ago about public safety. Once again bringing up that the Ministry of Sunshine should err on the side of what's right and what's humanly, acceptable, not to what, they've been misled by a city attorney, not what they've been, what the interpretation is of somebody else, not whether there's an exemption to an exemption. I mean, come on, guys. How much common sense does it take in Sunshine? This is Sunshine. We're talking about the truth mattering, not the obscuring of it. Not the way you read definitional things. Then to hear from a prior comment about Mr. Pilpel, being involved in the Ethics Commission in the way he was, I'm disgusted. Recluse? Yeah, he should recluse himself. It's a conflict of interest. But, I guess when the way to show how to get a rigged process through is shown to you guys, you'll jump all over it. The Ministry of Sunshine is nothing more than a risk management tool for the city. It's not here for the citizens, as I've said for years, and had determinations in that effect. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Is there any additional public comment?
Thomas Piccarello. I want to thank the 6 of you for showing up tonight. Many members of the public are appreciative and thankful for the effort that you're doing. But I'm also troubled and concerned that you only have 6 members here tonight. As you know, it will require unanimous vote to approve a request for public records or a request to attend a public meeting. So I don't know what happened, the mutiny on the Bounty regarding the task force. You lost 3 members, and you have 4 vacancies because Mr. Chopra it never attends, and you should go to the Board of Supervisors and get his ass off the task force, right? So you have 4 vacancies. So really you only have 7 members now. So members of the public that legitimately lead public records and don't have any agendas with city departments, or people that want to attend public meetings that actually are public meetings, are at a disadvantage to coming in front of the task force when we have to get 6 out of 7 of the task force members when you do have 7 members. So I would have liked to have seen the discussion about vacancies that's on your agenda up higher on your agenda so that members of the public could, maybe comment on those issues. In terms of your elections, you're probably going to continue that matter since there's only 6 of you here tonight. But if you don't, then that should have been, put higher up on your agenda, not 17, 18, when there won't be any members of the public here. True, we could send you emails, but I think there's more of a connection when you speak to a person in front of them rather than sending you an email. I like the emotive aspect of a discussion. So I criticize you for putting it way down on your agenda when there won't be any members of the public here at that time. At 9:30 maybe, there won't be anybody here. Members of the public, so it should have been put up. So you probably should continue the elections. That would be my suggestion. But again, I do appreciate the 6 of you being here, and you are doing good stuff, and that keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Piccarello. Is there any additional public comment? All right. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
Agenda, item number 8, file number 15008, complaint filed by Brian Brown against the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21 for failure to respond to a request for public records in a timely and/or complete manner.
Okay, first we have to find jurisdiction.
Well, first I need to make a disclosure.
Yes, Member Pilpel.
As I think I indicated at the last hearing before this was continued, I am a member of the PUC CAC. I don't believe that'll bias me in this matter. I've
What's
read
the
materials.
CAC?
The Citizens Advisory Committee.
You can be on that and this?
That's an advisory body. It's not an office. It's an appointment. Yes.
You're a busy little bee, aren't you?
I go to a lot of meetings. And if we don't have another member attend, could we take a break after
we're
this
done.
item for a couple of minutes?
Yes, I was planning a break after this item.
Excellent.
Member,
I didn't hear what you said you were.
So you're not recusing then? Because
No,
if you
I just wanted
recuse,
to-
we're
I
done.
just-
Yeah.
I just wanted to make a disclosure that
Okay.
I'm on that body. I don't believe it'll bias me in the matter. I've read the material.
Okay.
There are arguments on both sides. We'll get into that.
Member Wolf?
I mean, I think I'm comfortable with that, but could you briefly explain what the role of that advisory body you serve on is?
Sure. The Public Utilities Commission Citizens Advisory Committee was required by a charter amendment, Proposition E, I believe, in 2004. And
2002.
Excuse me, 2002. You're right. It took them a while to create it. There was an ordinance to create it. It advises the Public Utilities Commission staff, general manager, commission, the mayor, and the board on matters pertaining to the water, power, and sewer utilities that are under PUC's jurisdiction.
Advises them in what regard, on what issues, on what matter?
Operations, policy, finance.
But not...
It's merely an advisory body. It doesn't have any final decision-making power. It's different from the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee, the Rate Fairness Board, the Small Firm Advisory Committee.
And you don't, your role hasn't involved advising them on the availability of information withheld by the
Not
PUC.
with regard to implementation of the Sunshine Ordinance. We've occasionally made recommendations on having a bigger and better website.
Okay. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to find jurisdiction?
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any public comment on finding jurisdiction?
I'd like to make public comment.
One moment,
Yeah.
please. Can we finish the motion?
Well, it's public.
We-
She asked for
Oh,
public
yes.
comment.
So he's a member of the public for purposes of jurisdiction. Yes, Mr. Brown.
I would like him to excuse himself from this because
Can you speak
I was
to the
a member
microphone,
of the,
please?
Beg pardon, I'm sorry. I was a member of the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee. I actually helped write the enabling legislation for it, Proposition P. And it was my perception that the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee had been hijacked and was no longer independent, as we clearly stated. One example of this might be that the chair, I wrote an article in the West Side Observer about this, and the senior administration of the SFPUC asked the chair of my committee to write a rebuttal, and they helped to write it, and they edited it. This sort of dependence, I spoke at length, but when we had the hearing to extend the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee before the Rules Committee, I had never seen this gentleman appear at a Revenue Bond Oversight Committee. I'd never read any letters he had written to the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee while the 9 years I was a member. Yet he came up and spoke to extend this committee, which Tony Hall, who put it on the legislation, many people spoke for it to be to sunshine as it was written into the law in 2030. He spoke elegantly and without facts on why it shouldn't be extended. So I would appreciate it if you'd excuse yourself, sir. I think you have a decided conflict of interest, and I don't know why you appeared at that meeting, because you seem to just be supporting or putting forward and the SFPUC's case to extend this committee, which I think has done nothing but become a rubber stamp for the Revenue Bond Oversight Committee and not serve the purpose of a ratepayer advocate, which the city attorney said it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, if Member Pilpall does recuse himself, we won't have quorum and we will not be able to hear your matter tonight.
May I speak to? I don't really need a quorum. I just came to.
No, we can't have the hearing, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the law.
Yeah.
You don't want him to leave.
I don't want him there, no.
But you don't want him, okay.
You don't want him to not be there because then we can, sorry.
Well, you can't tell him what he wants.
I
can state my opinion.
You can state your opinion of
It's
what
my
he wants.
opinion.
Member Wolf?
We were in this very strange situation where if Member Pilpall recuses himself, then we can't move forward, and because we are down 3 vacancies, it's unclear when we would be able to move forward with this hearing with him there. The other side of this is that if he were to recuse himself, because of our vote, because of the way we make decisions in this body, him recusing himself is the same as him voting against you.
Excuse me, sir. I came here out of respect. I've had a computer crash, and I've lost all my documents. I'm rebuilding the system, and out of courtesy and out of belief, what Adam Swift said many years ago, when people gather in the public interest, I fear for my own personal interest. You people are the bulwark against that, and I admire you doing this job. So I would be happy to withdraw. If he stays on, I wish to withdraw my complaint. I just won't go forward with it.
Sir, we can not hear it tonight. We can continue it to another meeting. Is that what you would like?
I appreciate that. I will come back, and I will. When I build my computer system back, I have a young guru. I'm 80. A young guru who is way above my my level, and he's helping me rebuild it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
I believe
Mr. Young.
there needs to be a motion from the committee. I don't believe Member Pilpall has volunteered any action yet.
I have a question for DCA Cola on this. On the question of recusal, is the standard simply whether I have a personal bias or would have a bias in the matter before us? What's the standard that we're applying?
I believe that is the case, and I believe that only you can actually agree to a recusal.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I think the complainant is within his right to ask for a continuance, and the task force can consider that request independent of, your, agreeability to recusing yourself or not.
So, to be clear, the complainant can request a continuance, and that's before us to decide. I've stated on the record that I have involvement with the PUC on their CAC. I've, in fact, followed the PUC for close to 30 years and can speak to a lot of issues over there. But the question before us on the merits is whether documents were provided fully and in a timely and a complete basis. And I don't have any more interest in the outcome there than any other member or related to any other matter that comes before us. So that's why I don't believe I have any bias and I have no need to recuse. But I did make that disclosure earlier. Thanks.
Member Wolf.
Thus far, the complainant hasn't made a continuance. Given the complainant's concerns around Member Pilpall and the need for a unanimous decision at this point, is it possible for me to make a motion to continue this? I would like to make a motion to continue this to the call by the chair.
I will second that.
All right. Is there any discussion among members? Any public comment on the motion to continue this?
They're open for public comment.
No, sir, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Next.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get in ahead of you.
Just as a point of clarification, because one of your members asked what was CAC, I served on that PUC, CAC, initials up your ass, for over a year. And every meeting, we had somebody who was an expert in some field that was relevant to what the PUC was doing come and tell us all about it. So we had lots of good information, and what we did was send suggestions to the PUC that made the decisions. Just clarifying.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there additional public comment on the motion to continue this hearing?
Hello, as the respondent, am I able to make a comment?
Yes.
Yes.
On jurisdiction, or on this matter.
My name is Deborah Chilvers, and I am the Deputy Communications Director for the SFPUC. This is the second time the agency has appeared to address the allegations, and I would like to not continue because I feel like this case is very cut and dried. The facts are laid out in the chronology that was presented by my colleague, Suzanne Gauthier. All the documents that we have were provided within the 10-day period. So that's just my 2 cents on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I just heard public comment on this in regard from the PUC that basically, I think she said, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought as to what she said, that she didn't want this continued, that she would, that this had been before you guys, et cetera, et cetera. We're coming back to my due process, which I've been here many years over, the fact that there's only 6 having to decide. Mr. Pipal, deciding to recuse himself or being asked by the complainant to be recused, Once again, the Ministry of Sunshine has done it again. My God. We don't have enough people here so that there can be a quorum if one person excuses himself. And we have to get all 6 people to agree so that the motion passes. What due process is there? What hope is there for anyone here? This exasperated Ministry of Sunshine, which is a failure, and has been a failure in my particular case for over a decade, and I've got records of it, and continually pointed out. I'm really glad I'm taking films because these are getting posted on YouTube. The last one that I posted on YouTube, you should see the comments about the people laughing at you all. This was the Orange Jude amendment I made to you guys because you have no power. Step down until you can get full authority that's going to, go over ethics before you get rolled over there. 14 times you sent something up, 14 times it's been defeated. How much longer does this monkey game have to go on in the public? I mean, if we do not have a task force that works, that just obscures, that, one person withdraws and guess what? There's no quorum. You're the laughingstock of the country. This is sunshine. You're not helping us citizens. This guy shouldn't have to continue. And she shouldn't have to come back from the PUC. How dare you? How dare you? People come here with hope, aspiration, just ordinary citizens to get their records. I can tell you on mine, they've never been timely produced. I can also tell you there's been no precedent set for the Department of Public Health to continue to do it. Oh, I can't wait till we get to my case. So I guess I should just say, the Ministry of Sunshine, you never fail to cease to impress me with the incompetence, when it comes to getting the public what it needs. When it comes to obscuring, being a tool for the city to manage away things, to not get documents timely so that people can file lawsuits and stuff, you excel. You excel. You excel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comment.
I'd like to see the chair advise members of the public when they speak on a motion that the substance should address the motion. And then you guys can get out of here before 10 o'clock. I support the motion by Member Wolf. Even if Mr. Pipel could be fair and objective, there's a perception by the complainant that he's not going to be. So he's been waiting a long time for the records, and he's the one that says that he has no problem in continuing the matter. So the motion should be granted. You only need 4 of the 6 of you to pass that motion because it's procedurally. So you don't need Mr. Pipel to agree to the motion. And then to stay on the motion, though, you can see the problems that you're going to have until you fill the vacancies. Thank you.
Thank you. We are, by the way, working to fill the vacancies. We have applicants for seat 8, and we're hopeful that Mr. Member Rummold will be back. So we're forging ahead. So on the matter before
Motion
us.
to continue the matter to the call of the chair. Member Wolf?
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Copra? Copra absent. Member Pilpil?
No.
Pilpil, no. Member Hepner?
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey?
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland? Absent. Chair Washburn?
Aye.
Washburn, aye. That's a vote of 5-1. I believe they are correct pursuant to our bylaws. On matters of a non-substantive nature, the vote is passed on a majority of the members present.
Thank you.
That motion passes the matter, but we continue the call of the chair.
Take a brief recess.
I'm thinking that we could possibly get through item number 9 and then take a recess before 6:30. Our Member Wolf?
I'd be in favor of taking the break earlier. I don't know how other members feel.
All right, let's take the break now. It'll be for 15 minutes. Okay.
We're on the record?
All right. Mr. Young, would you call item number 9, please?
Item number 9, file number 15014, complaint filed by Paula Tetesh. One moment, let me... Item number 9, file number 15014, complaint filed by Paula Tetesh against Howard Lazar and the San Francisco Arts Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.15 B and E for failure to announce agenda changes and accept public comment prior to taking action. This matter was heard by the complaint committee, referred to the Sunshine Orange Task Force. At the Sunshine Orange Task Force meeting, which met last month, the task force did not accept the committee's recommendation, and therefore this matter has been scheduled for a hearing for additional testimony.
So I'm trying to remember why we wanted to have a full hearing. I guess we wanted more information. Does anybody remember the specifics on this one? Member Pilpel? Or why don't we, Member Fisher?
Before we proceed, I just wanted to state that the committee recommended that we find jurisdiction. Maybe we should confirm that jurisdiction from recommendation from the committee before we proceed.
Yeah, let's refresh on on why it's ended up on our agenda tonight.
I just want to confirm: is Mr. Tesh still on the line?
I'm still on the line. The reason was...
I just wanted to confirm you were still there. Thank you.
I'm still here.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not going to get into the details of this, but what I do recall is that we voted 3. Yeah, she's here. We did vote 3-0 to not find a violation, and then it came to the full committee, and we tried, in our attempts to get everybody to just kind of move forward with it and go on. I believe a few questions came up, and this is where I'm not going to get into details. This is maybe what we might do here. But the issue was that something was taken off an agenda, but it was on the agenda further along. It comes under what I call the gray area, and between members Hinsey, Rummold, and I, we thought the gray area, it was a little gray whether or not, but since it was, this board, and what we do is we investigate gray areas. That's what we do most of the time. We looked at it and said, okay, letter of the law, spirit of the law, it was, covered in the area, and Ms. Datesh, as is her right and privilege, made a complaint about it. We listened to it, and we didn't feel it was a violation. So that's the kind of 30,000-foot level, level explanation of this.
Does anyone have anything to add?
Well, only that the procedural history extends then.
Right.
Because then it went to the task force, and we were
not as convinced as we were, so that's why we're hearing it again. That's basically it.
All right. So we first need to confirm that we have jurisdiction. Is that right?
Is there a motion to find jurisdiction?
So moved.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second. I'll second that. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on jurisdiction? Hearing none without objection.
The motion to find jurisdiction passes without objection, with Member Copra and Vice Chair Hyland being absent.
All right, now for the matter before us. The complainant, Ms. Datesh, you have 5 minutes to explain your side of the case.
Members of the task force, thank you for being here tonight. This is a clear violation of 6715 A, B, and C. This concerns a Street Arts Committee meeting of January 14th, 2015. And in it, after the roll call, item number 2 was a Street Artist Program Director's report. At Chair Scalar's request, the item was not taken. There was no public comment. And then it moved on to item number 3. I'm reading from the minutes. They actually should be draft minutes. They didn't come up for approval at the full committee. But also in the audio, it clearly states that I'm removing item 2 from the agenda. We are removing the director's report as it would be redundant. What we have to say is in the next 2 agenda items. This can be heard in the audio if you pull it up. So what I'm saying is this was an action item under 6715, and it goes to the heart of what Sunshine is about, that in open government laws, to ensure the opportunity for each member of the public to directly address the body concerning an item prior to action thereupon. That's coming from 6715A. That clearly is item number 2. The action was to table the director's report. There was no public comment. So the more investigation would be to pull up the audio just by going to the San Francisco Arts Commission. You go to the Street Artists Committee, and then it would be in the archives. So January 14th, it's right in the beginning. It's very clear. There's no discussion about how 2 items would be merged or things taken out of order. The item number 2, the Street Artist Program Director report, was removed at Chair Scalar's request, and no public comment was taken. That's my thing. I actually went out of my way on January 21st to wait in front of 25 Vanessa Avenue, which would be the meeting of the Visual Arts Committee, to ask Barbara Scalar specifically if she remembered tabling the director's report at that Street Artist meeting without taking public comment. She didn't remember. I think this Chair Scalar, well, she was the former president of the San Francisco Arts Commission, and she has 25 years experience in this particular branch of government, and she didn't take public comment. It's a violation of the Sunshine Ordinance. That's all I have to say.
Is there anyone here to offer facts and evidence in support of the complainant? Okay, seeing none, the respondent. You have 5 minutes.
Kate Patterson, Director of Communications at the San Francisco Arts Commission. I don't have, since this is the third time we have presented this matter in front of the task force, I don't have too much more to add. I don't feel we made a violation. The chair, at the very beginning of the meeting, announced a change in the agenda, and that change was to basically sever the director's report because the topics that were in the director's report were heard in the 2 subsequent agenda items for which there was public comment. So I have looked carefully at Section 67.15B, and we provided public comment on the matter, so I don't see that we violated anything there. I looked at 67.1.5E, and we facilitated public input on the agenda item because they weren't dropped completely. They were heard. They were action items. The director's report is typically not an action item. It is a report. It's simply a report. And then I also looked through the Good Government Guide, and again, I didn't see anything that pointed to this being in violation. So, I hope to be educated tonight. If you feel otherwise, I don't know where we misstepped. So, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone here to offer facts and evidence in support of the respondent? Seeing none, the matter's with the task force for questions. Member Hepner.
Yeah, my question is for Ms. Datesh. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you.
Ms. Datesh, was the subject matter of the director's report heard in subsequent agenda items?
We don't know because if you can just pull up the San Francisco Arts Commission Street Artists Committee, you have the roll call, number 1. Number 2 is the Street Artist Program Director's Report. This is a standing item in all Street Artist Committee things. At Chair Scolar's request, this item was not taken, so we don't know what his director's report was.
Is that so? When it was severed, does that mean that the director's report was never made available to the public?
It was never made available to the public, and that's why I was hoping tonight that you could pull up the audio of the meeting, because Chair Scolar starts out by saying, we are going to remove or not take the item number 2, the Street Artists Program Director's Report. We are removing the director's report as it would be redundant. What we have to say is in the next 2 agenda items. So no, we do not know what was in the director's report. It was not made available.
And is the director's report made available in any other format that you're aware of?
Yes, been many years, probably 20 years off and on. I've attended street artist meetings. It's a verbal report. At times it comes across as supporting documents. 72 hours in advance, it's sitting there on the table and available to the public. So by listening to the audio and by pulling up the minutes, you can clearly see it was removed. This director's report was not severed. The item was not taken. And when you have an action, each member of the public has an opportunity to directly address the body concerning the item prior to an action thereupon. The action was the decision to not take that report. There was no public comment.
And was there any discussion of the director's report by the Street Arts Commission?
No.
Committee?
No, there was an announcement at the beginning that we are not going to take the director's report. That's all there was.
Okay. And I just want to be clear that I think our inquiry is limited to whether public comment needed to be taken on a change to an agenda item.
I agree.
And so, Ms. Patterson Murphy. The agenda item that contained the director's report, I mean, what is the basis for I mean, was the director's report made available to the public at the meeting?
So I think that, you know, for all the various committees, the director's report just kind of varies. It's usually a verbal report about, you know, for example, if it's at the full commission, you know, the director might report on the budget process. I mean, it can be broad or narrow. And in this instance, the content of what was going to be the director's report were 2 actionable items. And so in lieu of the director's report, the content was then addressed in the subsequent agenda items. So there was no like physical report necessarily. There was no presentation scheduled. And as in the transcript that Ms. Datesh read, you can the chair basically says, we're not going to do the director's report because it would be redundant because it's going to be covered in the next 2 agenda items. And those agenda items, public comment was taken after those agenda items, and they were actionable items. I hope that, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. Thank you.
So in other words, you may or may not have an actual physical report. Like we have an administrator's report. You don't have any. It's more informal than that.
Yeah, and it varies. You know, if the director has something that, you know, that is, you know, so because she mentioned that sometimes there's materials made available to the public. So if the director's report is saying covering the budget, he or she might opt to have a copy of the budget that is, you know, so the public can follow along with maybe the overview of the process. But that's not always the case. So I think what's important here is that it's not like there was a director's report, like a physical report, that was being withheld in this instance. The content of the director's report was the subject matter of the subsequent agenda items. And so the report existed, but in that different form.
Okay, thank you. Member Wolf?
I mean, it seems like an analog to this question is if, for some reason, our board or our task force or some committee were to inadvertently put 2 of the same agenda item under different names and then say, we're only going to hear one of them because we accidentally put them both down, would we, as a body, need to hear public comment on that, or is that just household cleanup?
There's the issue of whether we're required to and whether we would. I think we probably would. We tend to take public comment on every little thing, and in the interest of furthering the purpose of the Sunshine Ordinance to its furthest extent. I think we probably would take public comment on that. Whether we're required to, I think, is a different question.
Member Pilpel?
Number of things. First of all, to the complainant, Ms. Datesh,
Yes.
this was about a meeting on February 8th, roughly 3 months ago, yes?
January 14th, 2015. A director's report is a standing report. It's a standing agenda item. It's been for 20 years.
Thank you. I apologize. January 14th. I think your original complaint referred to a different date, but this was January 14th, Street Artist Committee. You haven't provided us, nor has the Arts Commission, the agenda or the minutes from that meeting, so you read some material to us?
I'm not able to be there tonight, and I don't have anybody who could go in there. I was hoping that as I said twice, that you could just scroll in, you just type in San Francisco Arts Commission, and your website comes up. Then you go to Street Artist.
But that's evidence you would be providing to us, and I don't think, you're not here to provide that evidence. So I guess my request to Victor in the future is just as when there's a complaint regarding records, we ask for the records request and the department's response. When there's a complaint regarding meetings, can we ask at least the complainant, and if they don't provide it, then the respondent, for the agenda and the minutes if they're available? And in this case, if we'd had that before us, it might have been helpful.
I did supply the minutes, and I do recall the response from the Arts Commission, which was that Patterson Murphy She didn't attend that meeting. She's only just been hired, only about 2 years. That these items were merged together. They were not. That's why I'm asking you to please listen to the audio. It's right there, right in the beginning.
You didn't provide it to us, and that's the evidence
I can't, Mr. Kilpel. I'm in the hospital. I don't have anybody who can physically come in there and do that. If you can please.
Then we can continue the item if you'd like.
I would appreciate it.
Okay. I've made my point about future items related to agendas and minutes. Can I ask Ms. Patterson-Murphy, was this a regular or special meeting? Do you know?
It was a regular meeting.
Regular meeting, okay. So in that case, 67.15A would apply and not B, because B refers to special meetings.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, can I just say that, in her reading of the transcript, that is how I remember it. So, I think, just so you know,
I don't think there's a great dispute about the facts.
Okay,
it's just a question of interpretation.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Moving on from that, I don't think there's any real issue about the minutes. I think, here's what I think in general. I think an agenda is put to bed no later than 3 days before the meeting. Once the agenda is out, absent a continuance that's automatically granted under the rules of the body or the applicable law or withdrawal of a case, again, pursuant to law, when things are on the final agenda, I think everything on the final agenda is subject to public comment. I do think that items can be taken together. So if you have two related items like 8 and 9, you can say, as we often do, we're going to hear items 8 and 9 together. And when we take public comment, we're taking public comment on both of those items. With regard to an announcement under 67.15E, and I'll read that for a moment, to facilitate public input, any agenda changes or continuances shall be announced by the presiding officer at the beginning of the meeting or soon thereafter as such becomes known to the such providing officer. I think that's announcing a change. So we're going to hear item 18 earlier than item 3 because there's a child care concern. That's just an announcement. If there's a continuance, again, that was authorized under law. If there's an action taken to move something or take something off the agenda, that's an action taken. And under the Brown Act, you take public comment before an action is taken, regardless of what that action is. So that's with regard to the announcement. So I guess in summary, I think that if the items weren't taken together, if the director's report and whatever the actions were not heard together, saying we're taking items 2, 3, and 4 together, or whatever they were, if the announcement was we're not going to hear the director's report because that was really subsumed into these other items, before you move on, I think that's the opportunity to say, is there any public comment on the director's report? And even if there was no report, sometimes you have a standing item where there's no report, you simply ask, is there public comment? If there's no public comment, you say there's no public comment and you move on. But with regard to every item that's on an agenda, on the final agenda, if it's before the body and not removed under law, I think you take public comment on it. So I'm inclined to find a violation here. I'm open to further discussion, but that's my sort of working through the thing, and I don't want... I'm generally not of the view that you find some little escape clause and say, okay, normally we take public comment, but in this case, not so much. If you take public comment on every item, you take public comment on every item. Thanks.
Okay, Member Hapner and then Member Wolf.
I was just wondering if Member Pilpel could cite a section of the code that provides for that, or if that's just sort of based on practice and experience.
It's sort of an overall interpretation of the experience, but I think it's really 67.15A with regard to regular meetings, an opportunity to comment on every item within the subject matter jurisdiction. And there's a parallel, and I'm sorry I didn't look it up, Nick, if you have that in the Brown Act. Is that 54954.1.3? Anyway, somewhere in the Brown Act, it says basically the same thing, and there's a definition in the Brown Act of action taken. And I think that's, for whatever good it is, also consistent with the advice in the Good Government Guide and the standing advice of the city attorney.
So 67.15A seems to provide for, both. I think it certainly provides for item 7 on our agenda, for instance, where we have an opportunity for public testimony on anything falling within the subject matter jurisdiction of our body here. I don't. Does it also provide that every agenda item needs public comment?
Why don't you direct that to Nick, and I'll take a quick look in the binder.
I think the black letter of the law would say that, yeah, every agenda item does require public comment. I think it's just a matter of whether or not you want to interpret what happened here as something that required public comment as an agenda item, or was it merely an agenda change because there was an error? It was a duplicate, and they simply announced its removal. I think those are the only two ways. You either find a violation here or you don't. And I think the only two rationales for them are they removed an agenda item without taking public comment on it, or this was a minor error in an agenda and they announced a correction of that prior to the beginning of the meeting.
I've got a follow-up.
Wait, Member Wolf.
Did you want my answer? I'll follow up after Member Wolf.
Aside from whether or not this was a violation, why is it not the best practices from the Arts Commission's perspective to have kind of followed what Member Pilpul had said, so that when the director's report came up, said there's no content of the director's report not contained in additional agenda items, taken public comment, then moved on to those additional agenda items. Aside from whether or not this was a violation, it seems like that is a more clean way to sort of conduct the meeting process in a way that the constituents have a sense of the process and where things were and why there was no director's report when it is something that occurs at most meetings.
Say that typically when there is an actual director's report, then we do take public comment after that director's report. In this instance, the chair said, we are not doing the director's report because we are hearing the matter in the next two agenda items. And for those agenda items, there was public comment. So I speculate on her behalf that she probably felt that because the content was assumed under the subsequent two agenda items for which there was public comment, then, we weren't impeding anyone's opportunity for public comment.
And I understand your reasoning and regards to what happened previously. I'm asking in terms of moving forward as standard operating procedure when there is no director, when there is no content in the director's report that's not already being addressed in other agenda items. Why is it or isn't it fruitful to have an announcement that says there is no information in the director's report outside of what we're discussing in items 3 and 4, and then take public comment on that agenda item?
I'm not saying it's not fruitful. No. I can certainly go back and make a recommendation to say that, based on, this hearing, that if there is no content to the director's report and you don't want to move forward with that agenda items, that we would have to take public comment. It's not a problem. And I think that in this, like I said, I think in this instance the chair felt that because the content, which is the meat of the heart of the matter, was being discussed in this next two agenda items, that she wasn't being remiss in not allowing for public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, Member Pilpul, and then we'll move forward.
So I think the operative sentence here is Brown Act 54954.3A, the first sentence. Every agenda for regular meetings shall provide an opportunity for members of the public to directly address the legislative body on any item of interest to the public before or during the legislative body's consideration of the item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the legislative body, provided that no action shall be taken on any item not appearing on the agenda unless the action is otherwise authorized by 54954.2b, which talks about emergency items. So my read of that, along with 15A, which is worded slightly differently, is that you take public comment on every item. I mean, you can certainly limit public comment, as we try to the item before the body and not let people wander off, except on general public comment. But when you've got a director's report, you just say, okay, director's report, is there any report? No report. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, what's the next item? You know, it's not hard.
All right.
And if I may, just in furtherance to that point, I think subsection E also, where it says, to facilitate public input, any agenda changes or continuances shall be announced by the presiding officer at the beginning of a meeting. And I think that probably did take place, but I think the phrase "to facilitate public input" further supports that comment should be taken on that type of item.
Okay. At this point, Ms. Patterson-Murphy, you have 3 minutes for a rebuttal.
I have nothing further to add.
Okay. And Ms. Dadish, you now have 3 minutes.
Again, I was so hoping you could listen to the audio of the meeting, because it's very clear in exactly what was said, which is we are moving the director's report because it would be redundant. Actually, the Clark brothers initially filed a complaint, but they were not at the meeting. They didn't really study the letter of the law, and they didn't listen to the audio, so their complaint did not fly. But their argument was that this was the director's report, the standing report, and before its removal, public comments should have been taken. And to me, it caused a lot of alarm, because the Clark brothers have been around for a long time. And when they attend public meetings and they do not see a director's report, there's something seriously wrong. So I actually went out of my way to listen many times to the audio. And this was item number 2. And Barbara Sklar clearly said, I'm removing the director's report. There was no offer for public comment. And to me, this was shocking when I heard it, when I was initially sitting in the meeting. But then afterwards, in talking to the Clarks and reviewing the complaint, it was very clear that there should have been public comment taken. And this is a violation of 6715A. And I think an order should issue. It should send a very clear message. We all know the experience that I go through with the street artist program. The fact, even if I'm looking at what should be draft minutes, which are labeled minutes, at the end of it, after we went through that long thing, the suggestion of Victor Young was that at the end, whoever wrote the minutes should put the date and the time in red at the bottom. They're not even following that. It lists a date with some initials, and then it says approved with a different date. Well, whoever approved the minutes didn't have sunshine training either. So, it just draws to the heart of what sunshine is about, taking public comment. And when you remove a standing item without, giving an opportunity for the public to talk, that to me is kind of important.
Thank you. At this time, the matter is back with the task force. Is there a motion?
There is.
Member Pilpel?
I would move, and it's a little detailed, to find a violation of Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.15A, and the Brown Act, Section 54954.3. Okay. 67.15A and the Brown Act, 54954.3A, for a failure on the part of Committee Chair Barbara Sklar to take public comment on the director's report at the January 14th, 2015 Street Artist Committee of the Arts Commission. I think that's it. And I would send this order, if adopted, to Ms. Patterson-Murphy, Mr. DeCaney at the Arts Commission, Mr. Lazar, Ms. Paige Ritchie, and to Commissioner Sklar. And I don't do this lightly, and I note both the city's request for a restraining order and the circumstances under that. I've read that material in the last couple of days, and the fact that Mrs. Sklar has served the city for a number of years, and that her former husband, who's now passed away, also served the city for many years and was a member of this body previously. So it's with all
of this task force.
Yes.
For me too, member.
Anyway, that's my motion.
Can I just ask a clarifying question on that motion? And is the proposed violation for failure to take public comment on the director's report, or failure to take public comment on the agenda change, or are we just referring to the item?
I'm just referring to the director's report.
Mm-hmm.
I don't view taking an item off the agenda as a change, because I'm not sure that a body has the authority to take something off the agenda when it's been put on, because I think you've put the public on notice. Okay. So I just think that if there was a failure to take public comment, it was on an agenda item, in this case, the director's report.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Any discussion? Any comments from any public comment on the motion?
Well, for me to say that this is not a God sent day and that I would ever approve of what Mr. Papel said, I am standing here in shock. From what I've heard, I think it's a wonderful motion. I totally support it. So am I, Mr. Papel. That's why I said it that way. What I heard through all of this basically was that for 20 years there had been a director's report. There had been a traditional way of doing things, and I'm not really sure, maybe the complainant can answer the question or not, but, whether there ever was that director's report to verify the assumption that the two following items was what was totally contained in the director's report, and there was no more that was omitted or changed or anything else. I mean, without the verification of seeing a director's report and then the next two items and saying, oh yes, that it checks off. 1 and 2 are in the director's report. That's all there is. There's not anything else. There's nothing that they're obscuring. If these people for 20 years have had a director's report in front of them, it also begs the question, why would the procedure have changed all of a sudden? And not, does that mean that for the 20 years a director's report was there and then everything that was discussed in the director's report was subsequent items? None of this makes sense. None of this makes sense. So, I actually applaud the Ministry of Sunshine, because I do believe this is a total failure on their part. Everybody's assuming just because the other side says that the two following items were what was on the director's report. That's an assumption. That's speculation. People are speculating. I'm not sure if that director's report, because I cannot remember, maybe like I said, the complainant can answer that question, whether or not there was a director's report that was ever viewed, considering that there had been director's reports for 20 years that people got to view. So if there was one, and it had been split between the two items, I might rest a little bit more assured that you guys, might be, you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing, because without the director's report to verify against that, it's all mere speculation, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, Mr. Young, would you call the roll on the motion?
Don't have to pass.
On the motion to find the violation, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Copra. Copra absent. Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Pilpel, aye. Member Hefner.
Aye.
Hefner, aye. Member Fisher.
No.
Fisher, no. Member Hinsey.
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland. Hyland absent. Chair Washburn.
Aye.
Washburn, aye. That's a vote of 5-1. The motion fails.
Thank you.
Are there any other motions?
Member Wolf?
I'm not sure I'm phrasing this motion correctly, but I'd like to suggest that we do not find a violation. However, we refer this to...
It didn't, Pat, nothing happens.
Okay, well, I suggest that we write a letter to say that the best practices are describing what David described, or Member Pilpel described, but not find a violation, because I think that the Arts Commission representative was amenable to that idea moving forward, and that stating that that is a clearer way to conduct the meeting makes sense, even if it doesn't cross the threshold of a violation.
Would a member of the committee like to draft a letter, or
Member
would the committee
Pilpel,
like
would you-
to authorize a member of the committee to draft a letter to this effect?
Is there a volunteer?
Member Wolf, do you want to try paraphrasing what I had in a letter and I can edit it?
I mean, I can describe what I said to the member of the Arts Commission in a letter, which I think is parallel to what you were saying, but if you preferred the way you had it, you should write the letter.
I'm suggesting if you can initiate something with your thoughts, and to the extent that you can divine mine, I'm happy to review that and we can prepare that.
Sure.
So Member Wolf will draft a letter.
Is this a motion? Is the committee authorizing Member Wolf to draft and send the letter? Or would you like to...
How about Member Wolf drafts it? I'll take a look at it and maybe we can bring it back next month, because it'll express the view of the task force and maybe we can flesh that out a little bit. I don't think it's going to take that long.
Okay.
Does that work?
Sure.
Okay.
I don't think we need a motion for this, do we?
Yes, I believe the director, Member Wolf will draft a letter and it will be scheduled at the next meeting for review and possible approval.
Okay, all right.
There being no further motions.
Did Ms. Datesh catch that at the end?
I got that, yeah.
Thank you.
There being no other motions from the committee, no violation is found. The matter is concluded.
Oh, well, got my heart broken.
Next on the agenda.
Do we want to take item 10 or item 11?
I think we need to move on to the special order at 6:30.
It is at your discretion. 6:30 doesn't mean we have to start at 6:30. It's just not before 6:30.
All right, why don't we move in order then and take item number 10?
Item number 10, file number 15012, complaint filed by Jason Grant Garza against Barbara Garcia, Philip Katzenberger, Faye de Guzman, and Nancy Serra, Department of Public Health, for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.21 and 67.25 for failure to allow inspection of public records during normal hours of operations without unreasonable delay and without requiring an appointment, and failure to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and or complete manner. The complaint committee determined that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force has jurisdiction and recommended that the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force find that the violation of Administrative Code Section 67.25A for failure to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely manner in regards to video recordings. Just to expand on that recommendation from the committee determined that the only issue that should be considered is the request for the specific video recordings. The other portions of the complaint regarding medical records and policy were previously adjudicated by the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force under file numbers 14076, 14077, 14078, 14056, and 14084.
All right, so which complaint committee? Which
It was
configuration?
Member Fisher and Member
Okay. Member Fisher, would you want to fill us in on some of the details?
Loan her the cheat sheet.
Can you pull the microphone, please?
We did find a violation, and that was for timeliness. Is that correct?
For the video recordings.
For the video recordings. And so we found that violation. It was 25A, I believe. And we all agreed with that. And then we brought it back to here.
This is the first time.
Right, so we're bringing it back here, and I don't know why.
This is the first time. This is the committee hearing the recommendation of the complaint committee.
Oh, okay, so we're not, sorry about that, Mr. Garza. So, I'm starting fresh. Yeah, this was, I remember, now, okay, I see what we're doing, sorry about that. So I remember this case, and Mr. Garza persuasively, presented this case to us, and clearly there was a violation in terms of timing. And I vaguely remember that who was the respondent? Who was physically here? It should be on here, right? Nancy, was it Nancy Soraya? Agreed with us that it was late, and we discussed it and said that, well, we're still going to find a violation, and let's bring it to this committee and follow through with that, whether it means that we just note it and move on, or that we bring them in for more education. I think they've been up in front of us.
I believe that the department acknowledged that the review of video recording is a timely process, and it's not possible to complete that within a 10-day period. They have developed some new procedures in developing a new request form for video recordings, which requires the requester to provide an exact time, location of the recording requested. I believe that this recording reviewed was many, many hours, as in 3 or 4 days worth of video recording, where somebody had to view it and look for the specific person in question, and that's why they could not complete it within a 10-day time limit.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this was a little bit of a catch-22, because it's what's it called, the law of unintended consequences, where you set this rule and you say you've got 10 days to do it, but it could have taken up all the 10 days just to do this. It just was physically just not feasible for it to occur. But they were late, and the rule is the rule.
Right. And so were they in contact with Mr. Garza about the fact that this was going to take them a long time?
I believe you reviewed my...
Yeah, there's a whole list right here, the request, and then 2 days later they requested, so on the 22nd was the request, 2 days later they requested an extension of time.
I see that. Yeah, I see that there. Okay.
And so it was on the 20th. And, you got to remember, 12/22, not to take anything away from Mr. Garza's request, but it's the end of the year. There's all kinds of things closing out. There's holidays. It's difficult. And I believe we did sort of discuss that maybe it's a little incumbent upon the requesters in the future to give more of a narrower scope, because that kept coming up, that this was just so broad.
To pinpoint the time, in other words. Right.
Yeah.
Member Wolf?
So the violation essentially was that they gave an extension, but then they weren't able to meet the time that they extended and were late. Am I understanding that correctly, Member Fisher?
They were late, and then they were late, yeah, because it was, the extension was until January 5th, but then it wasn't provided until January 20th.
They were late twice, basically.
Yeah, they were late twice.
But if
they were late, and then they were late with the late.
If they had maintained to say, if they had said in a letter saying they couldn't meet that deadline and had to extend it again, that wouldn't have been a violation, but they didn't send that letter?
I don't think there's a provision for additional extensions.
Yeah, there's no more.
So it's the responsibility of the agency to request the proper amount of extension, and then if they misjudge it, then it becomes a violation.
The maximum extension allowed is 10 days.
And in the past, when it happens that you...
10 business days.
10 business days.
Depending on which code, I believe one states 14 days and the other says 10 business days.
And just, anecdotally, not going to cite any specific cases here, but in the past, we have had people who have said, well, we're going to be late. It's a violation or not. And then sometimes the complainant says, all right, you're going to be 5 more days, but I just want the information. Just get it to me, and everybody goes away somewhat happy. Or not. And then some,
Maybe we should allow the complainant to provide his comment.
Wait, can't we just have someone make a motion to accept the committee's recommendation, and then we're not even hearing the case because we've already heard the case?
That's correct.
No, that's our procedure for this.
Yeah.
I make a motion to accept the committee's recommendation.
I second that motion.
Discussion.
Public comment? Is there any public comment?
Discussion.
Okay, Member Pilpal.
There's a third member of the public present. Is there a representative from DPH here?
Is there a representative from DPH? There is not at this time.
So-
However, they were not required to attend this meeting pursuant to my pursuant to the complaint.
Okay, I'm going to have, I think at the end of the day, I get to the recommendation. I just had a couple of questions for DPH, and since they're not here, I can't ask them, so I may have to move to continue. I think that we're giving departments bad advice by saying departments or respondents are invited but not required. Under the Ordinance 21E, a department representative shall attend any hearing on the matter. This is, although it's a recommendation from a committee, it's actually a bit of a hearing on the matter, and I'm troubled that there's nobody here from DPH. And I don't think we should be telling them you don't have to show. I think we can say there's a recommendation.
I believe we have set up this procedure pursuant to our complaints procedure, that if you do wish to continue this to a future meeting, you can do that. But this is just a review of the complaint committee's recommendation and not a hearing of both parties at this time.
I understand, and I'm not needing a full hearing. I just wanted to have a couple of back and forths with DPH to clarify some of these things, because I'm not sure that. I think, again, that I end up with the recommendation, but perhaps on a slightly different basis.
Where's my due process?
Through the chair,
We'll
can I
get to
address
you.
Member Pilpel?
Member Fisher?
Go ahead.
You're kind of defeating the whole purpose then of the complaint committee and of
Should've
all
never gone there.
of what we've done. I mean, the point of this was to hear these items and then make the recommendation to the full committee. And I get it. I mean, there are times when sometimes, well, you want to hear what the respondent has to say, but if we did that every time, then we're doubling our work.
It should have never gone to the complaint committee.
sometimes it works out great and sometimes it doesn't. So,
Member Wolf.
Yeah, I'm concerned that we're entering like what's essentially a de novo review, that we're in danger of doing this twice, and at the point that we start asking city representatives that they need to be here twice, they might as well skip the complaint committee process altogether, because we're just doing this twice for, as I see, no good reason.
Member Pilpel, and then we have to move on.
So, since they're not here, I mean, I can ask publicly what my questions were, and if, you guys have answers, that would be cool. I don't have a problem with that. So, I guess my first concern is if the request was made and received on December 22nd, it seemed to me that a December 24th response was initially untimely. So that's where I get to the untimeliness and a 25A violation. There was an extension requested, and then there was additional time needed. I'm not personally finding that the additional time needed to pull the video and review it and copy it and all of that was necessarily a timeliness violation, because I think they were doing their diligence, and in fact they provided lots of paperwork showing that they were trying to get the guy, and somebody was on vacation, they called the contractor, they couldn't identify Mr. Garza, they were doing all those things, and I think doing them diligently. The other two things that bothered me, in our packet, page 277, there's a document that's an email. I don't know which side provided it, but either the top section is all blanked out. So either it was redacted or printed out in some way that I can't tell who it was sent from or to and when. That bothered me, and I kind of
it's from Nancy Soraya.
On page 277?
Yeah.
The signature.
It's in the footer. We don't know who it was sent to, but we know who it's from.
This.
It's in the footer. It says right there, Nancy Soraya.
I'm sorry, on 277?
Yeah, 277. You've got the from, sent to, but then there's a footer.
Right, yes, I understand.
Yeah.
But I don't know who was printing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right,
Okay.
so that just seemed weird to me. I'm not saying it's the worst thing in the world, but it seemed odd. And finally, in the department's responses to Mr. Garza, most, if not all of them, were just signed Public Information Office, and they came from public records. I just have this view that you can send something to a generic email address like Public Records, X Department at the city, but when you get a response back, you should know who sent it. Mm-hmm. It should say, from Nancy Soraya, blah, blah, blah. not just it came from some vague amorphous place, but it actually came from some person. That doesn't seem unreasonable to me. I don't think that that's a violation, but I wanted to raise that. And I'm sorry. Finally, in their delayed response on January 20th, they indicated that Mr. Garza's medical records, if they are any, are medical records and subject to all the medical record stuff. That boilerplate, I think, could have been provided either on December 24th or on January 5th. That seemed like it was unnecessarily delayed, and it wasn't actually producing records. It was simply recapping their understanding of medical records stuff. So that also seemed delayed to me and was another basis for the 25A violation. So those are the things I wanted to talk to them about, but hey, they're not here.
Yeah.
Can I get due process and say what I want to say since they're not here? I mean, shouldn't I have my ability to say something? He wanted to ask questions. Shouldn't I give my input? Because I have several items that don't correspond because...
Okay, so Mr. Garza, since you are here, you have 5 minutes to...
Wonderful, thank you.
What, pardon me?
3 minutes.
3 minutes.
3 minutes is fine. 3 minutes is fine. I'm not trying to get over. If you guys all turn to page 246 and you read the very last thing that says, "Hello, Eric," he'll say he viewed Mr. Garza's videotape visits on YouTube and he announces the time he arrives at SFGH and is denied services. You know, for them to come out and say, "Oh, we can't find this, we need more time," the person is telling them right there, because I notified them that I had YouTube videos of the failures, to go and check on the YouTube video. It clearly states the time I was there. So they needed all this time to review, 24 hours worth of tape when the time is right there in front of them. Amazing. Simply amazing. Another thing I want to bring forward is that, on 2/17, when they asked for all this, and I went back and everything, on 2/18, I was denied into the building, having called civil standby, so that I could go talk to the PIO officer, because when I picked up all the stuff, I believe it was during the March compliance hearing, which I don't understand why I have a compliance or committee hearing. It should go straight to Sunshine as it's ruled, but this is simply another diversion, but we'll skip that for now. When I went to go in March, when we were here, I told Mr. Young, and he's even noted it, that I wasn't able to play the video, so I wanted to go back to the PIO officer at the Department of Public Health and say, "It didn't work for me. The stuff that you gave me did not work for me." Well, interestingly enough, when I went on 2/24, and I'm saying this specifically to Mr. Wolf, I was arrested. He was concerned about me being arrested when I was seeking medical records at San Francisco General. Well, I was arrested following up with the PIO officer and seeking an appointment for my medical treatment at the Department of Public Health because the records wouldn't play. I wanted it on a different format, but I was arrested. The Department of Public Health has constantly, the boilerplate that Mr. Pipal was talking about as far as, medical records are not public records. That's their boilerplate. It's a lie. Each and every time you've ruled that medical records are mine and they are public and I can get them. That precedent's never been set, so I'm sure that till the day we die, the Department of Public Health is going to use its boilerplates because, as I've said many times, this is the Ministry of Sunshine. It's here to obscure, to not look at all the facts. There's many other things. The most distressing is that I was arrested. Seeking to follow up. Those videos are on YouTube too. Isn't it amazing how none of these people could look at the videos on YouTube to know what time I went there? But yet they could use the excuse, "Oh, we can't look into all of this because it's too time consuming, blah, 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 blah." Well, another interesting part is that they claim that it's a HIPAA violation for me to video record, and when these tapes were produced, they had video recorded everybody. I guess it's a HIPAA violation, and we need to get the sheriff to go arrest the hospital who just videotaped everybody, because I was told by the sheriff and the Department of Public Health that I was violating HIPAA by recording my own receipt of my medical care. So it's all rigged.
Thank you. The matter's back with the task force. Is there a motion?
There's a motion.
There is a motion on the floor.
Okay.
So can you just clarify for me how I can otherwise express the concerns I expressed earlier to DPH? I don't want them to just get lost. Are my options to vote against the motion so that it doesn't pass today and we have to continue it or not find a violation, which I don't really want to do, or to discuss it with DPH offline? I mean, I'd rather do it in public here. So I'm in a quandary. Please help.
Member Wolf, and then I'll speak.
Another letter to DPH, similar to the letter I'm writing to the Arts Commission, seems like the easiest way to resolve your concerns publicly on the record while also not complicating Mr. Garza's case.
We can also insert it into the order of determination if you would provide that language.
Yeah, I actually would like it to be in the order of determination.
Okay. And what I expressed, there's no huge problem with those concerns being?
No.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
I would just need to have that from you in writing so that I can insert it in.
Okay, so we have a motion to
Good solution. Thank you.
to find a violation. In other words, to affirm the recommendations, accept the committee's recommendations. So,
On that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Copra. Copra absent. Member Pilpel.
Aye.
Pilpel, aye. Member Hepner.
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey.
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland. Hyland absent. Chair Washburn.
aye.
Washburn, aye. The motion passes.
I'll provide language. Do you want to refer this or just?
Yes, the
pocket
motion
it?
passes. The recommendation to find violation from the complaint committee is approved, and I believe that the chair wishes to allow Mr. Pilpel to insert language regarding recommendations to the Department of Public Health.
Right. I don't think I'll be referring it to committee. Okay. Mr. Young, if you call the next item on the agenda.
Next on the agenda is, I'm going to call them as a group, special order at 6:30, file numbers 15045, 15049, 15024, 15028, 15039, complaints filed by Alvin Johnson against Department of Human Resources. Mr. Johnson has submitted a request to postpone the matters to a future date. I believe that the representative from the Department of Human Resources is present to object to that request for postponement at this time. First on the agenda is to determine jurisdiction.
So do we want to determine jurisdiction on all of these items, or do we want to
I believe we can find
talk about it
jurisdiction and then we can move on to the question.
Or we could just continue the whole thing.
continue
I think we're
the
better
whole
off doing
thing?
that.
I think continue the whole thing rather than split jurisdiction and the substance. But I'd like to hear from the members of the Department of Human Resources.
Do we need to hear jurisdiction before we hear from them or not?
No.
I don't think
This is
so.
a matter of continuance at this time.
Yeah.
Good evening, task force members, Chair Washburn. My name is Susan Gard. I'm the Chief of Policy with the Department of Human Resources, and I'd also like to introduce my colleague, Paul Green, who is our Public Records Coordinator for the department. We do object to Mr. Johnson's request to postpone his matter until another date. We have spent multiple days preparing for this discussion, but more importantly, we seek guidance from the task force as Mr. Johnson's requests and the concerns we have regarding his requests are ongoing. So without going into detail on all of the issues and complaints he's presented, I'd like to give a little context. And pardon me, it's our first time at the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, so I'm not sure I'm completely familiar with protocol on everything. But I'd just like to make a few comments, really starting with the fact that the Department of Human Resources fully supports the principles of open government and transparency, and we have been responding to Mr. Johnson's request since 2007. We take his request seriously, and we attempt to respond to each with accurate and timely records. However, since the beginning of this year, the frequency and voluminous nature of his requests has increased dramatically. Because of the voluminous nature of these requests, we did in February invoke a rule of reason and advise Mr. Johnson that we would establish a reasonable amount of time and respond to his requests on a rolling basis, first in, first out. out. We've never invoked a rule of reason before. Again, we believe fully in open government, and that's part of the reason why we seek guidance tonight. The amount of time that we're spending responding to Mr. Johnson's request is unprecedented. Just as one example, our PRA coordinator spent 2.5 days working on Mr. Johnson's February 5th request for information about African American males working for the city in the 1990s. This work included retrieving documents from storage, consulting with our Equal Employment Opportunity Office, searching for responsive records, responding to the request, and then repeatedly responding to him as he is never satisfied with our responses. Every response we provide only leads to new and further accusations of wrongdoing, demands for additional records, and complaints to the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, which we must also respond to. As a result, there is a lot of work that is not being done. Mr. Green also provides human resources services to the Department of Elections, the Fine Arts Museum, the Asian Art, War Memorial, and the airport. So a lot of HR duties are being deferred as a result of the time spent responding to his requests. Myself personally, as the Chief of Policy, there are issues that affect all city employees that I am not able to manage in a timely way as a result of the amount of time we're spending on this particular issue. And we also have other parts of our department, such as the Equal Employment Opportunity Division, which are spending a lot of time responding to his requests. So tonight we really, if you do postpone the matter at Mr. Johnson's request, we do ask for some guidance in terms of understanding the expectations that we have as a department given the circumstances and how we should proceed going forward, as we do not anticipate a cease to the onslaught of records requests from Mr. Johnson. I will just show you briefly the stack of requests that we've received between April 7th and today. So this is a continuous process that we're dealing with on a daily basis, and we really need guidance on what we need to do.
Member Wolf.
Just a clarifying question. That's a stack of the documents responding to his requests, or those are each request that number approximately 500 requests, because it looks like there's a ream of paper there?
That's a stack of our correspondence. His requests and our, not responses with documentation, whether we have provided a response with some information and then he has another request to us. So it's not just his emails to us. It does include some emails from Mr. Green or from myself to Mr. Johnson. But the vast majority of those pieces of paper are email requests from Mr. Johnson to us.
And have you calculated how many requests in April? I mean, you cited this stack, which creates a visual cue, but how many, do you know how many requests in total that actually is?
Yeah, between April 7th and May 5th, it's 58 requests.
Okay.
And Mr. Young, how many complaints has Mr. Johnson
I do not have an exact count at this time, but it's in the 20s and 25 or so.
All right. All right. So, Member Pilpel.
I have a few thoughts, and I'll make these preliminary because we're not going to, I presume, hold an actual hearing on the merits, so we're not going to determine tonight, you know, the big enchilada, as it were. I would suggest in the interim that you seek better guidance from the city attorney. Some of the materials suggested that you were sort of, what's the technical term, flying a little bit on your own. I would try to engage better advice from them, and we can decide whether or not we agree with it, but it seems like you're asking us to just opine on first impression, and you have like day-to-day advice from the city attorney, which I know costs money and blah, 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 but look, there's no easy solution here. And by the way, this is just DHR. We're going to hear at some point about Mr. Johnson and lots of other city departments. This
Correct.
is, yeah.
There are a couple of these against the city attorney.
Right, and there are other departments, yeah. I mean,
additionally, the Civil Service Commission, the Controller's Office, the Department of Technology, and the Retirement Department.
For example.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, the good thing is that anybody with a computer can fire off an IDR at 3 in the morning. The bad thing is anybody with a computer can fire off an IDR at 3 in the morning to anybody they feel like on anything they want. The other thing I would suggest is that you look carefully, and I'm not telling you what to do, but that you either read or decide not to read the stuff that he's sending and the long missives that may or may not be requests and may be questions, or you can decide whether or not you want to respond, and if so, how. At risk of a violation. But, there's lots of email that people get. Not me, but people who get email, and I assume you can't, read and respond to everything. So there's that. Also, as to what seems like his underlying concern about African Americans historically and blah, 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 in addition to what you dug up, there may be other reports at the Civil Service Commission. I don't know. And I'm thinking that, if you could get a couple of minutes with Kate Favetti, she might be an excellent resource, and say, have you tried blah, blah, blah? Maybe there's some there, because she would know all of that in the back of her head. Just a thought. I don't expect her to know all the history of the Department of Technology or DTIS and all that other stuff, but those are just a couple of thoughts.
The idea of the rule of reason, I think that a case can be made for spending, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here.
Providing a reasonable amount.
Providing a reasonable amount of time every day. And I don't mean hours. I mean, 20 minutes a day or something like that, because he's bringing city government to a standstill, or attempting to. Mm-hmm. Although I shouldn't make that inference, but that's in effect what's happening. So I would not feel. I think you would find support amongst this task force for. I don't know.
I would.
DCA COLA. I don't know.
I think we're kind of getting into the grounds of offering advice, and DHR has advice counsel. And,
okay, all
I
right.
suggest you reach out to whoever your advice counsel is in my office.
Well, it is Beth Salveson, and I will say that we have reached out to the city attorney's office, and we did also utilize the Good Government Guide in crafting our rule of reason letter that we sent to Mr. Johnson. So it is not that we have done all of this on our own without legal guidance.
Okay.
All right, so I was really flying by the seat of my pants. I was just thrown by that visual that you showed us, Member Wolf.
I'm not sure it really is advantageous for us to have a brainstorming session with a city department over how to respond to complaints. We have a case with a complainant and this department in front of us. We can hear that when we hear that, but until then, this just feels like we don't know what we feel comfortable saying in the first place, and it's just a lot of sort of jostling around until we get to the case itself.
Right.
Agreed. We're kind of getting into an area where there could be a conflict of interest, so I think I'd advise us to back away from the subject matter.
Okay.
So
Member Pilpel, and then I'd like to hear a motion for continuance.
So just in terms of process going forward, all of these complaints seem somewhat related. They're all from the same complainant. They're all against DHR. Can we decide tonight to just merge all the files and just have it be sort of one big clump of stuff, Mr. Johnson against DHR, at least with respect to these issues that have already been raised and argued? I just...
Through the chair, may I recommend that we just continue it?
Yeah.
Well, we can do that too.
Yeah, I think let's move ahead.
I'll take that as a motion from Member Hefner.
Second.
Motion to continue. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any public comment? All right.
There's no public comment regarding the motion to continue?
Are we continuing to the next meeting or to the call of the chair?
I don't know I can't remember what's on the agenda for the next meeting. It might be pretty packed right now.
The motion, I think, was to the call of the chair.
Call the chair, okay.
On the motion to The motion is to the call of the chair. I would just like to open up public comment again to clarify that motion. There is no public comment on the motion to continue the matter to the call of the chair.
Without objection?
Without objection?
The motion is passed without objection with Member Copra and Member Vice Chair Highland being absent. This matter is continued to the call of the chair. These matters.
Thank you, members.
Item number 16, Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, consideration of tabling complaints filed by anonymous, file numbers 14051, 14052, 14060, 14109, 15006, and 15007. Included in your packet, I wanted to state that I did send a clarifying email to Anonymous stating what our definition of tabling is, and did state that she is able to refile her complaints when she is able to attend our meetings.
All right.
So do we just make a motion on this and then move on?
That is your discretion, yes.
Okay.
Is there a motion to table these items?
I'd like to make a motion that we table items on file numbers 1, 5, no, I'm not going to read them all, on the ones that Mr. Young has read.
I will second that motion.
Is there any public comment on this motion? Seeing none.
The motion to table the matters listed filed by Anonymous. On that motion, Member Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Member Copra. Copra absent. Member Pilfil.
You have.
I still had something to say. If we
Use your
can-
words.
Yeah. Last month, or when we last discussed this, I wanted to separate the old stuff from the new stuff because there was a clarifying email explaining that the complainant could refile. I'm good with the further tabling, so I'm supportive of this effort. And it helps clean up our stuff. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Pilfil, aye.
Yes, that's a good translation.
Member Hepner.
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey.
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Highland. Highland absent. Chair Washburn.
Aye.
Washburn, aye. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item number 17, election of officers. Elections of Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Chair and Vice Chairs pursuant to Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Bylaw, Article 2, Section 2 and 3. I'd like to state that due to our recent change in our bylaws, we have changed our scheduled, I believe, July appointment of new election of officers to April 27th, sorry. I don't have it written down. However, that conflicts slightly with Section 2, which states that we shall have elections once a year. So I leave it to your discretion. How do you wish to handle this?
I think it makes sense to wait until we get the new members.
You can continue this to the call of the chair.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does that make sense, Member Wolf?
I mean, it makes sense on the one side, but having been at my first meeting and being asked to vote on who our chair and vice chair should be, there definitely was a sense that I had no idea at that point, like, who I was voting for. So I think there is a plus or minus there.
If I may, through the chair?
Member.
Our current bylaws say that the elections should take place at the first regular meeting following April 27th, or at a subsequent meeting, the date of which shall be fixed by the task force at the first regular meeting after April 27th. So I think our only obligation today, assuming that we're continuing, which I'm in support of, until we have a fuller board present, I think that we are obligated to fix a date for voting for that election at this meeting.
So,
Member Pilpel.
So I agree with both of those comments. My intent in having the bylaws read this way was that they would track with the appointment dates, but giving us the option to continue, and by continue I mean fix to a date certain, if there are members absent or vacancies or holdovers or for whatever other reason. So on that basis, I'm supportive of how do you want to, continuing this item to our June 1st, 3rd, to our June 3rd meeting, and then proceeding at that time. With whatever body we have then, and we can continue the matter further, but at least not to do it tonight.
So is that a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
If I may, I would suggest that we push it out 2 months. I don't know, just so that there's a greater likelihood that we'll have more people.
Okay.
I'm open to that too. I will restate it as continuing it to the July meeting of the task force.
July 1st, I believe, is the date.
I no longer have anything to say.
Pardon me?
It's already been discussed around July, so there's no reason for me to echo what's been said.
Okay.
Are you with that? You good? Yeah.
All right.
Are you seconding?
I'll second, sure.
Can I also suggest, if we do this, and I think we will, that, Madam Chair, to the extent that you have time or can work with Vice Chair
Highland?
Yeah, that's the word. That we start to prepare the annual report that would cover the past year so that we don't get stuck with a later or a 2-year annual report and all of that.
Right.
Okay. That's all.
There's no members of the public in the room. On the motion to continue the matter to July 1st, 2015, Member Wolf? Wolf, aye. Copra? Copra absent. Member Pilpil?
Aye.
Pilpil, aye. Member Hepner?
Aye.
Hepner, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Member Hinsey?
Aye.
Hinsey, aye. Vice Chair Hyland? Hyland absent. Chair Washburn?
Aye.
Washburn, aye. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item number 18, Administrator's Report. Regarding the item number 2 on my Administrator's Report, the hearing schedule. May 11th, the Education Outreach and Training Committee is scheduled to meet at 4 p.m. I believe we do need to revise the membership on that committee, as 2 of those members are no longer part of the task force. May 19th, the Rules Committee Complaint Committee. That meeting, the Rules Committee does not have any items scheduled. However, the Complaint Committee is tentatively scheduled to meet. However, that is open to discussion. June 3rd is the next task force meeting. June 16th, compliance amendments. And June 16th, the Compliance Amendments Committee will have a second hearing as the Complaint Committee on that same day. We received 2 communications. Carlo Gracias has communicated with us regarding the SFMTA. The matter was duplicative and, I believe, not accepted. Andrew DeWoe submitted documents regarding her concerns of Member Pilpil attendance at the Ethics Commission meeting. Item 4 lists the complaints submitted in the last month. If you want to take a look at that, you will see the number filed by Evelyn Johnson against various departments. Item 6, from 2014, we have 5 pending complaints. 1 is pending a report that was supposed to be written by former member Rummold. So we will need to discuss that matter regarding reassigning that report before rehearing that matter.
Can I just interject on that? Could you actually email former member Rummold and see if he has done anything further or has thoughts? I mean, he might actually have a few pages that he's already done, and we could consider that whether or not he's a member of the task force.
No, there is no problem with that.
Okay. And if
However,
he's done,
the letter will still need to be re-signed unless Mr. Rummold is reappointed.
Right. We're hoping that he'll be reappointed.
Yeah, I'm certainly with that.
There were 4 by anonymous. However, those have been tabled today. So currently, there is only 1 pending complaint from 2014. 2015, there are 48 pending complaints.
48, and how many of those are Mr. Johnston's?
I do not have exact numbers, but approximately 20 to 25. Item number 7, pending complaints that are in committees of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. The numbers speak for themselves. There are a total of 12 complaints that were referred to committee for additional action.
Okay.
That completes my administrator's report.
Did you call the next member, Pilpil?
Yeah, 2 items. So on the committee membership, did Chair Washburn need to take some action on the
We
committees?
can't do that. It's
The next
at the
item.
discretion.
Oh, okay. That's fine. And then, just as you started a list of pending items at the committees, which is great and helpful, I like that. Could you, either in your administrator's report or on the agenda, include anything that's hanging out on the task force, like the election of officers, annual report, things like that? So
I will discuss it with the chair, and we will
just have some way that we can capture what's here, just like the things at the committees.
I
That's
will
all.
work with the chair on that matter to see if we can develop a new method.
That'd be great. Thanks.
That completes my report. I do not see any members of the public in the room at this time. Item number 19, update Sunshine Ordinance Task Force memberships and vacancies. I would like to report that the Rules Committee will be hold a hearing to consider 2 seats, I believe, on May the 14th. I believe Member Hinzy's seat is one of those seats that is being considered for appointments. There are the other 3 vacancies.
Member Hinsey and Member David's seat?
No, yes,
Okay.
yes. The seats 1 and 2, I am still awaiting a response from the Society of Professional Journalists. They are aware of the vacancies, however, they have not provided a recommendation. Member Copra seat is also vacant, or
holdover.
He will be a holdover. He is a holdover at this time. I am trying to get a recommendation from the organization responsible for making that recommendation at this time.
Okay, good. When did you say Rules was meeting?
Next Thursday.
The 14th?
Yes.
Oh, I can't be there.
I believe they start at 11 o'clock, but I do not have that information in front of me at this time.
Yeah, I got it.
Their standard start time is 11, but I don't know if they've changed it.
I can't be there.
Member Chair, I believe Member Wolf has.
Member Wolf?
There's all this discussion. Well, I didn't know Member Rummold had stepped down or something, and then there's discussion if he will be reappointed. Can someone?
Member Rummold moved out of the city, which forced him to resign. However, he can be.
Resign or
It's
request a
considered
waiver?
a resignation
Is
because he
it?
no longer meets the qualifications
Oh.
because he was not granted a residency waiver. If the Society of Professional Journalists does recommend him again, the Board of Supervisors can appoint him with a residency waiver.
Is there a way? Because it seems like we should be able to just jump straight to the Rules Committee granting the residential waiver without going through this whole process.
The problem is letters from nominating organizations are only valid for 1 year. Once that 1 year has passed, the letter is no longer considered valid.
Oh, so he would need to get renominated? No, because it's a multi-year
Yes,
term?
and in addition to that, I believe it would be a good idea for the Society of Professional Journalists to note that they agree with the residency waiver. That just
because it's names submitted by them, knowing that blah blah blah, and it's a chance for them to do the Winston seat at the same time.
Right. Okay.
So has he not? Did they try to go through with the residency waiver already?
they have not. We're still awaiting the letter from the Society of Professional Journalists.
Is there any way to, I mean, they're probably sitting there thinking, they're shrugging their shoulders thinking this is no big deal. I mean, is there any way to kind of impart upon them
I can provide
urgency?
the contact information to any of the members if they would like it, and they can contact them directly.
I would almost go back to our old friend, Mr. Nee, and have him make a phone call. I'm looking at you because you're the chair. So, I mean, Richards, he's got juice in that organ. He's a big macher in that group.
I
I'm
would
sure.
be happy to provide the contact information to anybody who would like it.
Thomas Peel is
I've been
probably.
in contact with him a lot.
I mean, I'll email Richard and say, Richard, tell your brothers to get this going. We need this guy back. I mean, it's if somebody wants to file a sunshine ordinance on that email, knock yourself out.
Thomas Peel and Jeff King, I believe, are still the chairs of the FOI committee of SPJ, unless.
I believe it's Lillian LaHood.
Who?
Lillian, I believe, from my memory, it's Lillian LaHood is considered the president.
She's the president of SPJ.
Yes.
But there's the chair of the FOI committee, which is in charge of nominating the names to the SPJ board, who then votes on it. So I will take care of writing Jeff King and Tom Peel, who I know both of, and push that along.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll email Rickney and Lou, you
just
can
like-
as well.
'cause- Yeah, because that way he can be like, oh, I didn't know you guys were down to 6. Oh, okay.
And if there's anybody with contacts with,
NCM?
yes.
What? New American
The
Media?
nominating
California
organization for Mr. Rishi's, Mr. Corpra's seat.
Mr. Who's
The
seat?
person is Sandy Close at New
Which
California
seat
Media.
is this?
Uh,
Ali's.
Member Copra.
No, but member Copra's
For the
seat.
media seat.
Copras, yeah.
That was a media seat, too?
Yeah, but Sandy's basically retired at this point, which makes that whole organization a little bit.
Who's running it, or what's happening to it?
What organization is that?
New American Media.
So that is
Yeah.
New American Media, and that was Suzanne's seat, right? Let's get
And
Suzanne back.
many people over the years, but yeah.
Like
He's in grad school right now.
New American Media has
They do.
become much more of a individual products that are running themselves, like individual campaigns, if you will, or publications. And so the overall organization has become less necessary for them as an organization, but in terms of their role in the city of San Francisco as a Sunshine Task Force, and previously navigating that, it seems like there's a lot of disconnect.
Well, what happens if one of these organizations either merges or goes away or just, things happen, the Bay Guardian shut down, then does that seat go away or does
We would
that
have to
seat
make an
open
amendment
up?
to the ordinance.
So which means it has to go in front of the voters.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, that was a stupid idea that they didn't put some little
I think it's
catch-all or
actually
safety.
written in a way that the Board of Supervisors can name a new organization to replace that one.
Oh,
Everything is taken on an individual basis.
Not.
On the New American Media, in reading it, there seemed like there was some catch, but I don't remember it anymore.
There's no, excuse me, David, there's like no fails. I obviously haven't read it that
I would
closely.
not want to provide an opinion at this time.
There should be a fail-safe in there. Like, what if it was, somebody nominated from, Elephants of Africa Incorporated, and then Elephants of Africa went out of business or something?
That's an argument for why the board should have the ability to amend the ordinance and not just the voters. The only thing I can say is I think the ordinance says New California Media, and they, at a minimum, changed their name some years ago to New America Media. And I think that was considered, it's the same organization, they just changed their name. But if the organization goes out of business, I think, we're kind of stuck with having an empty seat until
So it's
the ordinance is changed.
It's SPJ, New American Media,
And League of Women Voters.
League of Women Voters.
They're still here.
And two of them aren't going anywhere, for sure.
What was Ali's seat?
He was most recently, he was the journalist.
He was SPJ.
He was the SPJ journalist.
And then what is Mark?
He's the SPJ lawyer.
So there's two SPJs, a New American Media and a League of Women Voters.
Yes.
And
a general press or electronic media that Josh is sitting in.
You're the general press or electronic media?
Mm-hmm.
And doing a fine job, thank you.
Thank you.
We love you and all that, but that's 5. That's
Okay, so I think we have an idea of what's before us.
Right. And I have a 6 a.m. flight I have to catch, so.
There being no members of the public in the room, no additional comments, we'll move on to the next item. Item number 20, announcements, comments, question. In regards to item 19, membership of the committees. If the chair would like to change the membership of the Education Outreach and Training Committee down to a 3-member committee of Member Wolf, Chair Hyland, and Member Pilpil.
I think we're going to need to do that.
Okay, I will make that change. In regards to the Rules Committee and their potential meeting for the Complaint Committee on May the 19th, that meeting is not set in stone yet. It's still pending. However, we currently only have 2 members on that committee of the Rules, Member Fisher and Member Hinsey.
Is there somebody here who's, no, we're all on committees, every one of us.
If we would like to delay that complaint committee, that is not a problem, and we would not need to make a decision at this time.
Do we have a lot of cases?
I have a very, very light load for that meeting at this time. The majority of my pending complaints are Mr. Johnson, and I do not. May 19th may be a little bit early to try to continue his items too. Plus, I'm not sure if he would agree to go to the complaint committee.
Oh, you can try.
I think we
Agree
could
to what?
try.
If we don't try, then we're going to have 56 or 69 items by next month, which is.
What did you say? I missed what you said. Agree to what?
Well, this is a matter of scheduling. I would need to contact him to see if he is willing to be heard before the complaint committee. Just as a courtesy, even though we are allowed to assign him to complaint committee, I believe in this case, I would like to get his consent just due to the nature of the complaint. Mr. Johnson, Alvin Johnson.
Sorry. The complainant. Okay.
We could try. We could try.
I think we should try. And I would like a volunteer for being the third person on that committee this month. If there's someone.
I'm already there.
You're already there.
I would be happy to, except I know I cannot make that meeting this month.
And I can't make it this month.
And I did last month, and I can't. I've got a 5:30 meeting. I could only be here for like an hour, which doesn't really help.
It's looking like I can make it, but I also have 3 potential jobs that could happen, in which case I'd have to take the work.
We could proceed with 2 members and keep the meeting light.
Who said they could be here for an hour? Well, I mean, you could bail. You could bail on us after an hour.
And there's like a 90% chance I'll be able to make it, but I have to, if the work shows up, I'll have to.
90%? That sounds good.
Yeah, but he's 100% for the first hour.
Why don't you, if you can, why don't you appoint Member Wolf, and if he can't make it and we know in time, then maybe we can wave the magic wand and I'll do an hour if that helps.
Well, we can still do it with just the 2 of us, right?
Oh, yes, you can proceed with 2, and I think I can just proceed with a lighter agenda.
Okay, why don't we do that? Because Member Hepner and I do it.
And if things change, you can decide in the next week,
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
I assume
think
that would
Fiona and I can handle it.
I have no doubt.
I assume that Member Wolf is being assigned by the chair
The
at this
shortest
time.
meeting in the history of sunshine.
I know.
Yeah, if you'd like to, yeah.
Sure.
And if you can't, it won't be the end of the world.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be here anymore.
That's true.
Yes. And I will work with the chair of the committee to make that agenda.
There are 2 things that I think we should discuss at some point. I think we should plan to revisit how these complaint committee process is working. It seems to sometimes work and sometimes have more complications than we may have expected coming into it. So I think it does deserve a second look and a sort of analysis of whether we want to continue with it and how, if necessary, to modify it. And especially, theoretically, everything's going to go well with the Rules Committee. We'll be back to having a robust number of members. But in the event that we find ourselves down to the size that we are right now, I realize there's incredible complications in changing our decision-making process and very limited in what we can do thereabouts. But I find the way that this body functions when we only have 6 members present in regards to our decision-making process to be absolutely horrific. And I do think we should have a discussion about. I already realize that our options are limited, but I still think we should have a public discussion about this because we're getting berated by the public about it. Again, I already do know the writing on the wall, but I still think we have to discuss it. or should discuss it at least.
Yeah, this is deja vu for me. We were in this place before, and it was.
I would like to call item number 20, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items.
All right, I'll make my couple of comments under here to respond in part to Member Wolf. I agree with what you said. I had a couple of suggestions that perhaps might help. We've recently been doing the minutes at the beginning. We could push those to the end, and so hear things first. It wouldn't save that much time. We could also do the recommendations from committees first and get them out of the way, because it's either approve the recommendation or schedule a thing. So maybe those people don't have to wait as long. And then get into complaints. And the only tweak that I would suggest to the complaint committee process, again, is to have departments here and allow like a minimal exchange that doesn't get into, the whole merits of the thing, if that makes sense. And if that doesn't go anywhere, then we schedule a hearing and, reject the committee recommendation. But I think that's generally been working, and the more things we can send to committee and have recommendations back, the more we actually might deal with our backlog, or we're going to, have a bigger mound of stuff. Those are my comments on that. I also had a handout.
While you're handing it out, I would like to restate some of the actions from this committee today. I will be scheduling a hearing regarding commenting via telephone. I am guessing that I can assign that to either the Education Outreach or the Rules Committee. And then I will be scheduling a meeting to consider the Complaint Committee recommendation process, and I would also consider sending that to the Rules Committee.
Oh, okay. That'd be a good place.
At your discretion, it's just my recommendation.
No, I think. Yeah, I like those ideas, both of them. Yeah.
And then if I could come back on the handout, there was something in the paper, since you mentioned Thomas Peel, it's headed your way. There was some news in the paper last week about a lawsuit that the Bang papers filed against the state legislature over disclosure of former Supervisor Yee, then State Senator Yee, and Calderon's records related to blah, 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 blah. And there was a tentative decision. The judge still has the tentative decision under submission. There were oral arguments Friday morning. There hasn't been a final decision issued, but this is a Superior Court tentative decision from Sacramento that was very interesting. It's not about Sunshine or the Brown Act or the Public Records Act. It's actually interpreting the Legislature Open Records Act. But the analysis that the judge went through is interesting and might help us in the future in terms of the process privilege that was claimed. It discusses the Times Mirror case that some people may be familiar with, and I just thought it was interesting to some of our work.
Thank you.
Yeah. Feel free to read it at your leisure. Thanks.
If it's regarding the same thing, that matter also related to disclosure of public calendars,
right?
Which bears on something that I was going to mention, that I've heard that our amendments to the Sunshine Ordinance to expand the calendar requirements may be going before the Rules Committee on May 14th, and I'll keep the task force posted through Victor Young if that happens, and so that we may show up in order to testify in support of that. In the meantime, I think that we should be very cautious and careful about how we approach that issue, and I don't think that we are naturally going to have the support of a whole lot of the supervisors. So in the way that we talk about the burden that requirement that would create, I think that we should be very cautious in hopes of garnering as much support on the basis of open government and transparency and just the positive aspects of it.
Member Pilpel.
I'm not sure how much I want to say on this, but I think between the provision that Member Hepner just talked about, the provision that we talked about earlier with the membership of the task force, some of the ways that the ordinance is being used or not, and the way that we get complaints, I think, and any number of other things that might be on my mind, I don't know that this is the year to get a measure on the ballot, but I think sooner rather than later, we need to think about, and the city needs to think about, an amendment to the ordinance to go to the voters to do some both minor and perhaps major surgery, because I think there are a lot of things that are working well that we don't hear a lot about, and there are a number of things that aren't working that well that we see day in, day out. And it's been a long time, and if we get into that discussion, we won't all agree on what those changes should be, but I just think more and more that there are things in this ordinance that are, really incredibly broken, and in some cases getting worse. And I don't want to lose the good things in there because of those bad things. So I just wanted to put that on everyone's back burner.
There being no public in the room, there's no public comment. And I believe next item on items, item 21, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, everyone.